The red-eyed demon wolf was very fast, and its body was not big, so its movements would not cause much of an impact. However, these large power King Kong ape were different. As they ran with all their might, the ground trembled and cracked, as if there was an earthquake. He was afraid that the other party would have already sensed his presence before he even arrived. However, Lin Xian was not without a solution. He found a spatial scroll in the storage ring of the King of Many Treasures. This was an extremely precious treasure. It was equivalent to a spatial teleportation array and could allow one to teleport instantly. If he hadn't instantly killed the King of Many Treasures, the other party would have escaped again. Therefore, he could make use of this spatial scroll now. He first gave the spatial jade tablet that represented the coordinates to Duan Qingqing and told her to take it with her. At that time, Duan Qingqing would crush the spatial jade tablet and lock onto the coordinates. Lin Xian would then be able to use the spatial scroll. Following that, Lin Xian and the large power King Kong ape waited quietly. As for Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei, they controlled dozens of red-eyed demon wolves and quickly set off. On the seventh prince's side, the 5 supreme experts working together were extremely terrifying. They fought until the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Within a radius of 10,000 miles, all the mountains were shattered. Cracks began to appear in the sky. In the end, the huge demon king let out a wail and was torn into pieces. This is great. Seeing this scene, the seventh prince revealed a smile. In the next moment, he waved the fan in his hand and walked forward with a smile on his face. 1 step, 2 steps. He walked very slowly, his face full of confidence. In his opinion, this was already a certainty. The amethyst snow dragon ginseng was definitely his. Buzz. However, in the next moment, he was stunned, because the void cracked open, and a long sword quickly slid down from the sky, and then fixed itself on the ground. Boom! The ground sank, and countless cracks instantly spread in all directions. Seeing this scene, the seventh prince's face darkened. The faces of the surrounding almighties changed. Then, one by one, they exclaimed, "Who is it? Get out here!" At the same time, a terrifying soul power surged out and probed the surroundings. They were too shocked. They did not expect that someone would intercept them at this time. Could it be that it was a powerful team sent by a powerful prince? Thinking of this, they were extremely nervous. Whoosh! However, in the next moment, a figure floated down from the sky, accompanied by a chuckle that sounded like a silver bell. It was indeed the amethyst snow dragon ginseng. That's great. I didn't expect to see this treasure. The figure that came down said with a smile. Everyone around them was stunned. The seventh prince frowned. He sneered. "Little girl, this is something that Ben Huang has taken a fancy to. How dare you snatch it? You really don't know what death is. How about this? I'll give you a chance. Obediently submit to me, and be my servant. I can spare your life." The seventh prince raised his chin and looked down at her condescendingly. When the supreme experts of the Grand Imperial Hall saw this scene, they were all stunned. What's going on? A young girl dares to go against the seventh prince alone? Isn't she courting death? Isn't this the girl beside the eighth prince? She's a young genius. Why is she here now? And she's acting alone? Could it be that the eighth prince is coming? The elders and supreme experts were all confused. As for the supreme experts, supported by the seventh and eighth princes, they were all extremely solemn. They stared at the crystal light carefully, and their eyes flickered. The seventh prince and the 5 supreme experts around him also recognized the other party's identity. Then they became a little nervous. However, when they used their soul power to check and found that the eighth prince was not there, they all sneered. She dared to come here alone. She's courting death. Thinking of this, the seventh prince snorted coldly. "I advise you to surrender obediently." "Who said that I came here alone?" Duan Qingqing sneered at this moment. She was fully prepared this time. How could she come here alone? In the next moment, she clapped her hands lightly. Suddenly, roars could be heard from afar. Following that, dozens of black shadows rushed over from all directions. Those black figures were very fast. They tore through the void like lightning and arrived nearby in a few flashes. Chapter 2090. What is that? Seeing the dozens of black shadows, the seventh prince and the other almighties were shocked. Heavens! Could it be that the princes had joined forces to kill them? If that was the case, they would be dead meat. In the Grand Imperial Hall, those people were extremely nervous, but when they saw the true appearance of the black shadows, they were all stunned, because they did not expect that these things were not humans, but demon wolves, red-eyed demon wolves. That's right, they were indeed red-eyed demon wolves. It was Lu Fei who rode these red-eyed demon wolves and quickly surrounded the seventh prince and the five almighties. These were the beautiful demon wolves, the native beasts of this space. Damn it, they could actually control the demon beasts here. Could it be that they had an extremely powerful beast tamer? Seeing this scene, all of them were shocked. Even the seventh prince had a solemn expression. To be honest, he had beast tamers on his side, but they could only tame individual demon beasts to allow them to fly or run. However, it was impossible for them to cover such a large area. How did they do it? They were extremely shocked. However, the seventh prince sneered. I admit that your strength has exceeded my expectations. You can actually control dozens of demon wolves. However, your strength is not enough to deal with me. This time, I have brought 5 elite almighties. You can't fight against these red-eyed demon wolves. The seventh prince was right. When the 5 elite almighties joined forces, it was extremely terrifying. Although there were many of these beautiful demon wolves, their combined strength was not comparable to the combined strength of the 5 almighties. Moreover, the seventh prince was not someone to be trifled with. He was also a top-notch genius. Therefore, when comparing the two forces, the seventh prince's side still had the upper hand. Moreover, the advantage was very obvious. At the thought of this, the seventh prince and the 5 almighties sneered again. In the Grand Imperial Hall, the elders and experts were also discussing this. Among them, the elders who supported the seventh prince snorted coldly. The 8th prince had really miscalculated. How could he send such a team? Did he really think that 2 young men and a pack of demon wolves could defeat the 7th prince's elite team? What a joke. The experts on the side of the 7th prince sneered, while the people on the side of the 8th prince frowned. What was going on? This was not the 8th prince's style. To be honest, they were also very confused, but at this moment, they could only wait patiently. Moreover, from the crystal screen in front of them, they could see that the 8th prince was working together with a group of people. In other words, apart from Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei, there was another young genius named Lin Xian in the 8th prince's team. But even with Lin Xian, there were only 3 youngsters. For the 7th prince, it was simply unable to cause a fatal impact. This made them even more confused. As for the Empress, the corners of her mouth curled up into a mocking smile. This old 8 was really daring. He actually only sent 3 youngsters outside. She really didn't know what he was thinking. How could such a reckless person become the crown prince in the future? Hearing this, even the emperor frowned slightly. The Empress, on the other hand, was even happier. As the mother of the first prince, she naturally didn't want the 8th prince to stand out. But now, the strongest competitors of the first prince were the 8th prince and the 3rd prince. Now that the 8th prince had made a strategic mistake, she naturally wanted to seize this opportunity to suppress him. This caused the 8th prince's image in front of the emperor to plummet, and now it seemed that she had achieved her goal. In the space, the 7th prince and the 5 experts couldn't wait any longer. The seventh prince waved the folding fan in his hand impatiently and said, "Seniors, let's do it. Capture the two of them for me? Little kid, you really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Do you think that you can defeat us with just a few wolves? You're too naive. You want to compete with us? Go back and cultivate for a few hundred years." The five elite experts sneered and quickly walked towards Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing. Duan Qingqing's mouth curled up into a mocking smile. She was not nervous at all. In the next moment, she raised her hand and gently crushed the space jade in her hand. When Duan Qingqing crushed the space coordinates in her hand, on the other side, Lin Xian sensed it. Immediately, the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. In the next moment, he waved his hand, and the space scroll opened. Immediately, the power of space completely enveloped him and the dozen or so power King Kong apes. Then they merged into the void and disappeared. Boom. On the other side, near Qingqing, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the space. Then more than a dozen figures flashed out. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as these people landed, countless cracks appeared on the ground. As if an earthquake had occurred, the distant mountain peaks collapsed. What was going on? There were still people. Seeing this scene, the seventh prince was stunned. The five elite experts around him were stunned. Inside the Hall of Supreme Harmony, those princes and elders were all stunned. They really didn't expect that Duan Qingqing could call for help. This was a space scroll. Heavens, she actually used this kind of thing, an elder exclaimed. And on the seventh prince's side, his scalp went numb. The reason being that he had sensed several terrifying auras approaching rapidly. In an instant, the entire space froze, pressing down on them so hard that they couldn't breathe. The five elite experts who wanted to make a move were also stunned. They frowned, and their expressions became extremely solemn, because they had already seen clearly what had appeared. It was an incomparably handsome young man with a dozen or so power King Kong apes. F***CK. Seeing this, the five elite experts had the urge to curse. They really couldn't imagine how the other party could control so many demon beasts. First, there were dozens of demon wolves, and now there were more than 10 power King Kong apes. With such a powerful group of demon beasts and 3 young geniuses, it was enough to contend against them. No, it wasn't to contend against them, but to completely crush them. Even though there were only a dozen or so large power King Kong apes, their fighting strength was much more terrifying than the demon wolves, especially since the other party's strength was great, and his defense was extremely strong. If these two groups of demon beasts went berserk together, they wouldn't be able to defeat them. Thinking of this, the 5 supreme experts stopped attacking and turned to leave. The seventh prince was also so angry that he stomped his feet. He was about to go crazy from anger. One had to know that he had brought people with him to find the amethyst snow dragon ginseng with great difficulty, and he had also defeated the peerless demon king, who was guarding the heaven and earth treasure with great difficulty. Just as he was about to get the treasure, he didn't expect that so many people would suddenly appear. He couldn't accept it. He really couldn't accept it. Chapter 2091. He had led his men and found the amethyst snow dragon ginseng with great difficulty. Then he had defeated the supreme demon king, who was guarding the heavenly treasure. Just as he was about to get his hands on the treasure, he did not expect that there would be so many people coming out of nowhere. He couldn't accept this. He really couldn't accept this. But what could he do even if he was unwilling? The monster horde that the other party had brought was too powerful. Even if he had 5 elite almighties with him, it was not enough. Even if he fought with the other party at all costs, he would suffer heavy losses even if he could fight back. And the other party would only lose the monster horde. But this kind of monster horde could be caught as long as there was a beast tamer. So, no matter what, they would be at a disadvantage. Go. The seventh prince gritted his teeth and made a plan. Finally, he decided to retreat. "Want to leave?" Seeing this, Duan Qingqing sneered. Then she led a dozen monster wolves and rushed forward. They blocked the way. On the other hand, Lin Xian waved his hand and carefully took the purple golden blood dragon ginseng. Then he urged the power King Kong apes to rush forward. "Get lost!" When the elite mighty beings beside the seventh prince saw this, they roared out in rage and struck out immediately. They had to leave quickly. Otherwise, they would be in danger if they were surrounded by the monster horde. In the next moment, the king domains soared into the sky and turned into bright lights, shaking the surroundings. As for the monstrous beasts, they were roaring in anger. The sky was torn apart mercilessly in an instant, and the entire space exploded. The battle broke out, and it was very intense. Everyone used their ultimate skills with all their might. On the other side, in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, many elders and princes looked at the crystal screen, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Those who supported the eighth prince were originally worried, but when they saw this scene, they all laughed. As for the powerhouses who supported the seventh prince, their faces darkened as they gritted their teeth so hard that they were about to break. Surprise, it was too much of a surprise. They did not expect that the other party would have a space scroll and could tame so many monster horde. Damn it, how were these three young people together with the monster horde? It was definitely a powerful lineup. Ordinary elite almighties could not compete with them. Damn, where did the eighth prince find such a powerful beast tamer? The others were even more shocked. They were all experts, so they naturally knew the strength of a beast tamer. But it was precisely because they knew that they were shocked. An average beast tamer would have no problem taming 1 or 2 demon kings. But how many of them were there? There were at least 50 of them, right? To tame so many of them, one had to be at the level of a supreme being. However, the other party had managed to do it. How did he do it? They couldn't believe it. Furthermore, even now, they were still unable to determine which beast tamer had done it. The Empress's face darkened when she saw this. To be honest, she was a little worried. This was because the effect of the eighth prince's team was simply too shocking. She was very worried. If the first prince encountered him, would he be able to contend against him? Beside him, the emperor nodded his head slightly. At first, he thought that eighth brother was too reckless and arrogant. But now, it seemed that this was not the case at all. The other party must have planned this. It was indeed not bad to have such a plan and strength. Therefore, the emperor nodded and smiled. On the other side of the battlefield, it was extremely intense. The sky fell and the earth cracked, exploding in all directions. However, in the end, the seventh prince and the others were still defeated, because no matter how strong they were, they still had to take care of their own injuries. But at this moment, under the control of Lin Xian, those beasts seemed to have gone crazy and charged forward without any regard for their lives. Under such a reckless battle, the people on the seventh prince's side simply couldn't do it. There were even 3 elite supreme beings who were directly beaten to the point of vomiting blood. Of course, the result of these 5 supreme beings and the seventh prince joining forces was also very terrifying. A few power King Kong apes were directly blown up and turned into a bloody mist. There were even more than 10 demon wolves that were split into 2 halves. Blood dyed the ground red, and the pungent smell of blood enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles. It was like a hellish azure field. However, the remaining power King Kong apes and demon wolves were even crazier. And in Lin Xian's eyes, mysterious golden runes would appear from time to time. Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei were even crazily attacking. Both of them were peerless geniuses with powerful strength. At this moment, they cooperated with these beasts and joined the battle. The power was even more terrifying. Damn it, I'm so angry. The seventh prince was so angry that he went crazy, but those elite supreme beings' faces were gloomy. As they spoke, Qi Huanzi hurriedly threw out a few jade talisman trump cards to lure them away. Otherwise, we won't be able to escape. The seventh prince gritted his teeth, his face gloomy and uncertain. He knew that his performance was now being watched by countless royal elders and princes of the emperor's royal family. He was really unwilling to admit defeat just like that. Thus, he hesitated for a moment. Immediately, his injuries became even more serious. Although he had killed quite a few demon beasts, he really couldn't hold on any longer. In the end, the seventh prince gritted his teeth and took out 3 jade talisman trump cards from his storage ring, throwing them in 3 different directions. He hoped to lure away Lin Xian, Duan Qingqing, and Lu Fei. Sure enough, when the 3 of them saw the jade talisman trump cards, they immediately chased after them, taking advantage of this opportunity. The seventh prince and the others quickly escaped. Should we chase? Duan Qingqing asked, looking eager to give it a try. From the looks of it, she still wanted to chase after them. On the other side, Lu Fei was also a little excited. Lin Xian, on the other hand, smiled and said, "Forget it, we've already benefited greatly. Moreover, as a prince, he must have some life-saving means to participate in this kind of battle. Even if we go all out to chase after them, we won't be able to kill them. Besides, I don't really want to kill a prince. I'm not stupid enough to become enemies with the Tai dynasty." That's true. Hearing these words, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei stopped chasing after them. They comforted some of the remaining demon beasts, then looked at Lin Xian expectantly. "Lin Xian, we've put in a lot of effort this time. Can you give us some of that amethyst blood ginseng?" Duan Qingqing asked quickly. Lu Fei, who was at the side, was also looking forward to it. After all, it was a famous treasure. If they could take some of it, it would definitely be beneficial to their cultivation and strength. Lin Xian, on the other hand, smiled and said, "Don't worry, I won't take it for myself." In the next moment, he took out the amethyst blood ginseng, then divided it into 3 portions and gave 2 of them to Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei. "You're not bad," Duan Qingqing said with a smile. After Lu Fei took it, he also said, "Brother Lin, thank you very much." Then the 2 of them sat on the ground and began to take the amethyst blood ginseng. On the other hand, Lin Xian did not take it directly. He took out a few more treasures, then took out the 10,000 bee sting and began to refine pills. Chapter 2092. Brother Lin, thank you very much. The 2 of them sat cross-legged on the ground and began to consume the pills. On the other side, Lin Xian did not consume the pills directly. He took out a few more heavenly treasures, then took out the 10,000 bee sting and began to refine pills. While refining, he kept watch over the 2 of them. When Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei woke up, they immediately smiled. That was because they felt that the spiritual power in their bodies had become incomparably pure. Moreover, it had improved by a large margin. That made them extremely happy. All of a sudden, it was comparable to decades of their cultivation. However, when they saw Lin Xian refining pills, they were instantly dumbfounded. Duan Qingqing pouted. "Damn, you actually know how to refine pills. Why didn't you say so earlier?" She was really surprised. She did not expect Lin Xian to know how to refine pills. Although the effects were great after they consumed the pills raw, the effects would be even greater if they were combined with other heavenly treasures to refine pills. However, the 2 of them were really too excited, so they did not ask anything and ate the pills directly. At that moment, when they saw Lin Xian refining pills by himself, the 2 of them were a little stunned. Lin Xian also opened his eyes, then said with a smile, "You didn't ask. Moreover, you ate so quickly. I wanted to ask you, but I didn't have time. Damn." Duan Qingqing was so angry that she stomped her feet. On the other side, the corner of Lu Fei's mouth twitched slightly. However, The two of them decided that if they found any more treasures during this period, they would not eat them directly. Instead, they would give them to Lin Xian for him to refine pills. Lin Xian's pill refining skills were not to be trifled with. Very quickly, he finished refining the pills. He refined a total of 5 pills, each of which was crystal clear like a crystal. Lin Xian put away 4 of them, then took one and put it into his mouth. Immediately, a wave of pure energy emerged in his body and quickly cleansed his meridians. Feeling the energy, he nodded in satisfaction. Let's go, let's continue. Duan Qingqing sat on the demon wolf and asked curiously, Lin Xian, what family are you from? That's too perverted. Not only was his swordsmanship outstanding, he was also a beast tamer. And now he was also an alchemist. Don't tell me you're an all-rounder. Do you know anything about arrays? Lu Fei was also very curious. To be honest, he and Duan Jingjing were both peerless geniuses and were very powerful. At such a young age, he already had the combat strength of a mighty figure. However, the two of them didn't know anything other than peak battle prowess. He did not know how to tame beasts, nor did he know how to refine pills. Of course, this wasn't their fault. After all, it wasn't just the two of them. The other exceptional heavens favorites didn't know how to do it either. Only specialized beast tamers and alchemists would know how to do it. This was because alchemy and beast taming not only require talent, but also a special soul force. He still needed to spend a lot of time to study and master these things. Normally, they were all exclusive geniuses. Like alchemists, it was not that there were no young alchemists, but their battle prowess would not be stronger than them. It was the same for beast tamers. However, Lin Xian's alchemy, beast taming, and offensive prowess were truly rare. It could be said that he had never seen such a person before. After hearing this, Lin Xian also smiled and said, I don't know if I'm an all-rounder or not, but I still know a little about arrays and restrictions. Damn, you really know how to do it. Duan Qingqing's eyes widened, as if she had discovered something new. She was very curious. Lu Fei, who was at the side, also felt dizzy. Damn, this is already an all-rounder. Brother, don't provoke us anymore. Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing were very depressed. In the end, the three of them quickly went on their way. Not only them, all the princes' groups in the entire space began to move. They crazily searched for the ruins and snatched the other princes' jade talismans and trump cards. Battles continued to break out. However, in terms of overall strength, the first prince, the third prince, and the 8th prince were the strongest. The first prince's side was divided into 3 teams. The Golden Lion King led a team alone, while the first prince and the Herculean King each led a team. The third prince's side was divided into 2 teams. One was led by the third prince, and the other was led by the first blade and an expert of the older generation. The 8th prince's side was very special. Although they had 2 teams, Lin Xian's side had very few people. There were only 3 young geniuses. Most of the strength was gathered around the 8th prince. Therefore, all the teams that encountered the 8th prince's team were defeated. Moreover, they were defeated quickly. As for the other princes, they all joined forces and prepared to fight against the 8th prince. After all, they didn't have much hope of becoming the crown prince. However, they didn't want to lose so unjustly and let the first prince and the others become the crown prince so easily. Therefore, they definitely joined forces to fight against the 8th prince. Although these princes were weak, when 2 or 3 of them joined forces, they were also a very terrifying force. Therefore, for a time, the competition between all sides was very intense. In the worst case, there were even elites who died. As for the ancient ruins here, they were even more determined to get it. However, a few strange things happened recently because of the appearance of 2 bandits. Many princes were robbed by them. The weaker princes didn't realize who the 2 bandits were at all. The stronger princes were so shocked that their eyeballs almost fell out. because they realized that the bandits weren't the other prince's men, but two demonic beasts. Heavens, could it be that these two demonic beasts had become demons? Among them, one of the fifth prince's team was an old man. His vision blurred, and then he was directly knocked unconscious. Then his head was hit a few times, and his head was full of big bumps. As for the heavenly treasure in his hand, it was directly snatched away. When he came to his senses, he was furious. Damn, where did these little bandits come from? I'm going to kill you. He roared crazily and scanned the surroundings with his soul power when he saw two afterimages. He was so angry that his beard turned white. What did he see? A monkey and a red snake? Damn. These monsters had really become demons. Generally, when they entered this place, they were the ones who killed the demonic beasts. Even the powerful demon king couldn't resist their joint attack. But now, the two demonic beasts had started to rob them. How was this possible? He couldn't tolerate it. Therefore, the old man was enraged. He held a long saber and charged over. But a second later, he was whipped back by a tail. Half of his face was swollen, and his teeth were broken. This time, his temper was completely gone from the beating. Although his opponent was a monstrous beast and was only a snake, its strength far surpassed his own. Therefore, he could only vent his anger and smash the surrounding mountains and forests into pieces. Not only that place, but many other places also received the same impact. For a moment, everyone was shocked. There were even many people who wanted to chase down and kill these two monstrous bandits. However, they couldn't succeed at all. Chapter 2093. Because the two of them were very fast and very strong. That made so many groups and forces gnash their teeth in hatred. But in the end, there was nothing they could do. This shocking thief was naturally the Crimson Dragon and the snow-white little monkey. After the two of them left Lin Xian, they began to make their moves everywhere. Originally, Lin Xian wanted the two of them to explore various ancient ruins and obtain the treasures inside. However, after the Crimson Dragon and the snow-white little monkey discussed it, they felt that it would be too troublesome to do that. They still had to break through various formations, so they might as well just rob them. Therefore, the two of them attacked those groups and forces. But from the looks of it, the results were not bad. On Lin Xian's side, he still did not know about the actions of Rizalong and the snow-white little monkey. Otherwise, if he knew, his face would definitely be filled with black lines, because this way it was too high profile and too eye-catching. If he was caught, he would definitely be cut into pieces and dragged out for research. Right now, he, Duan Qingqing, and Lu Fei were controlling two teams of demonic beasts and setting off. With the red-eyed demon wolf and the large power King Kong ape, they would be able to kill gods and Buddhas along the way. There was nothing that could stop their footsteps. However, when they crossed a mountain, the red-eyed demon wolf and the large power King Kong ape under their feet did not move forward, no matter what. Even with Lin Xian controlling them with his eye technique, these demonic beasts were still crawling on the ground, their bodies trembling. What was going on? Seeing this scene, Lin Xian frowned. Did his eye technique fail? But that shouldn't be the case. Duan Qingqing also had a face full of doubt, and at this time, Lu Fei said, "Brother Lin, let them go. These demonic beasts all have their own territories. The place we came from before probably didn't have any stronger demonic beasts than them. That was why they were able to rampage all the way. Perhaps there was some incomparably terrifying demonic beast in front of them, or a group of demonic beasts that these two demonic beast races could not resist. In fact, they were not even allowed to enter their territory, so it was useless to control them. So that's how it is." Lin Xian nodded, understanding. This logic was not difficult to understand. Every demonic beast had its own territory, and other species of demonic beasts were not allowed to enter. Since that was the case, Lin Xian did not continue to control these demonic beasts. He, Lu Fei, and Duan Qingqing set off. They set off ahead. At most, he could just go to a new place and control new demonic beasts. As for the remaining large power King Kong ape and red-eyed demon wolf, they were separated by him to two different places. After an hour, the control over these demonic beasts would be dispelled and they would return to normal. Whoosh, whoosh. As for Lin Xian and the other two, they set off once again. Lin Xian, there seems to be an ancient ruin nearby. The Big Dipper ruins seem to be here. Let's go and take a look. Lin Xian looked at the map. Then the three of them quickly flew towards the Big Dipper ruins. Soon, they arrived at the top of a mountain range. In the mountain range below, there was a cave dwelling emitting a desolate and ancient aura. Although it was just a cave, there was a completely different world inside. It was equivalent to another world. This was a relic that had been passed down since ancient times. It was extremely mysterious. This should be the Big Dipper ruins. Lin Xian looked down. On the other side, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei's eyes also flickered. Soon, they frowned. There seemed to be someone below. Let's go down and take a look. Lin Xian was the first to descend, followed by Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei. The three of them were like meteors as they quickly cut through the air and landed on the ground. Whoosh! There was indeed someone below. The three of them landed and attracted the attention of the people below. Kid, it's actually you. When the people below saw Lin Xian, they were stunned for a moment before they sneered. They naturally recognized Lin Xian because the two of them were two young men and they were the fourth prince's subordinates. However, it wasn't Sword 13. It was you. Lin Xian, Duan Qingqing, and the other two also recognized each other because he had seen them before in the first stage. However, Lin Xian didn't have much of an impression of them because these two people weren't top existences like First Blade and Sword 13. Therefore, at the next moment, he said in a deep voice, "We've taken a liking to this ruin. You two should leave quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for starting a massacre." "What? You want us to leave? You even dare to start a massacre?" The two young men of the fourth prince were stunned. Then they laughed in disdain. "Kid, I think water has entered your brain. This isn't the first stage. So what if you're strong? You're just a young man. Do you think only the two of us came this time? Let me tell you, our experts are all inside. Any one of the older generation experts can kill you in minutes. So, kid, you'd better get lost quickly. Otherwise, when our experts come out, you'll be dead meat. There are more people?" Hearing this, Duan Qingqing frowned. It seemed that these people had come prepared. Moreover, there might be many experts inside. Thinking of this, her eyes flickered, and she asked in a deep voice, "Brother Lin, what should we do? Should we retreat?" "No." Lin Xian shook his head. How could he give up such a good opportunity? Moreover, he had already used his soul power to check and found that there were only 3 people inside. It was a team of 5, but unlike the 7th Prince's team, they were all top-notch almighties. Among the team of 5, at least 2 were young prodigies. However, Lin Xian didn't care about these 2 young prodigies at all. In other words, only the 3 people inside were a threat. Therefore, it wasn't impossible to fight them. In fact, he was very confident that he could beat these people away. Therefore, at the next moment, he looked in front and snorted coldly. "I'll give you one last chance. Get lost or die." "What? You're courting death." Hearing this, the 2 young men were enraged, and the aura on their bodies circulated rapidly. They were about to attack. However, Lin Xian sneered. "Why, you want to fight me? Do you dare?" No, they didn't dare to. Lin Xian's strength was far beyond theirs, and he could probably kill them instantly. Therefore, they really didn't dare to. Although the 2 of them had ugly expressions, they could only send a signal to the cave and ask the older generation to come and attack. There was an old man and 2 middle-aged men inside. They were all almighties, And at this moment, they immediately frowned when they received the situation outside. Isn't that Lin Xian, the #1 swordsman in the first round? I heard that even Sword 13 is no match for him. This kid has the title of the #1 swordsman. Hearing this, a middle-aged man in black snorted disdainfully. What #1 swordsman? It's just a title made up by a young man. No matter how strong his sword technique is, can it be stronger than mine? That's right, Brother Sun is right. He's just a young man who has only seen a few swordsmen, yet he's so arrogant. Indeed, he said indifferently. Why, Brother Sun, do you want to teach him a lesson? Chapter 2094. Of course, I have the same idea. Please break the restriction here while I go out and get rid of that kid. With that, the middle-aged man in black with the surname Sun turned around and strode outside. He was also an expert in the way of the sword. Naturally, he would not admit that a young man had taken the title of the #1 swordsman. Moreover, his strength was above Jian Shisan's. Therefore, he was even more disdainful. Originally, he did not have the chance to meet him. Now that he saw him, how could he let him go? He would kill him with his own hands, and let everyone know that the title of the #1 swordsman among the younger generation was just an empty title. Just as the middle-aged man in black went out, the outside world noticed the change. That was because other than Lin Xian and the other two, another group of people was rushing over. It was obvious that they were also here for the Big Dipper ruins. However, when they saw Lin Xian and the other two young men below, they immediately frowned. The other two young men also stepped forward and snorted loudly. Get lost! This is the place that the fourth prince has his eyes on. All unrelated people scram. What? They are the fourth prince's men? Hearing this, the group of people above frowned even more. They were the 11th prince's men. Their strength was much weaker than the fourth prince's. However, there were only two young men on the fourth prince's side. How dare they scold them like that? They were really courting death. So what if you were the fourth prince? Do you think two young men can fight against us? There were 4 people above. One of them was an old man, 2 middle-aged men, and 1 young man. However, the fourth prince's men below sneered. The 2 of us naturally can't do it. However, in the cave, there are seniors from the Qianquan Sword sect, the Great Compassion King, and the Cloud-Breaking Hand Senior Su. Who do you think you can beat? When they heard the names of these 3 people, their faces became extremely gloomy. No matter which of these 3 people it was, they could not beat them. They did not expect the fourth prince to have such a strong team. What should we do? Should we leave? They discussed for a while and wanted to leave. However, in the 11th prince's team, a young man pointed at Lin Xian and said, Elder, they are not the fourth prince's men. They are the 8th prince's men. That person is Lin Xian. I know him. 8th prince's men. Hearing this, these people frowned even more. The 8th prince was even more terrifying than the fourth prince. They couldn't afford to offend such a person. However, the 2 young men below laughed and said, There are only 3 of them. If you want to fight, we don't mind watching the show. What? There were only 3 people. Hearing this, the 11th prince's men were overjoyed. However, Lin Xian, Duan Qingqing, and the others frowned. What was the meaning of this? Were these people trying to sow discord? However, to dare to draw the flames of war to them, they really didn't know what was good for them. At this moment, one of the 11th prince's men spoke. Among them, the old man stared coldly at Lin Xian and the other 2. Little dolls, since you've met them, you can only blame your bad luck. Do you have a King Jade amulet? If you have it, hand it over quickly. On top of that, hand over all your storage rings and valuables. If you dare to hide even one, I will break your legs. Hearing this, Lin Xian snorted coldly. Duan Qingqing was enraged. F***CK. You old bastard. How dare you rob this great aunt? She was furious. They were just the 11th prince's men. How dare they attack them? The difference between the 11th prince and the 8th prince was huge. On the other hand, Lin Xian sneered. I do have a King Jade amulet, but I don't know if you have the ability to take it. What? You really have a King Jade amulet? Hearing this, the 4th prince's men were stunned. The 11th prince's men were even more confused. Then they became excited. Originally, they were just asking casually because they didn't think that the other party had a King Jade amulet. After all, how could 3 young people have such an important item? They didn't expect the other party to admit it. They couldn't help but be overjoyed. One had to know that a King Jade amulet was important. It was more important than exploring the ruins. The 11th prince's men were tempted. They discussed for a while and decided to attack immediately. They didn't want the Big Dipper ruins, but they had to get the King Jade amulet that Lin Xian and the other 2 had. In the next moment, the old man in the lead sneered. Suddenly, an extremely violent aura surged out of his body. It was like a vast ocean that swept across the entire world. Oh no! Sensing the aura, the 2 young men below changed their expressions and quickly retreated to distance themselves. This was because this aura was simply too terrifying. Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei also looked solemn because that old man was indeed powerful. The old man sneered and flipped out a large red hand. It passed through the clouds and grabbed downward. In an instant, Lin Xian and the other 2 were shrouded. Damn it! How dare you attack the 3 of us? Duan Qingqing was furious. Lu Fei also snorted coldly and was about to attack. However, at that moment, Lin Xian directly attacked. A black longsword appeared in his hand. He pointed it at the sky and stabbed it, shattering the void. Poof! That incomparably frightening gigantic palm that could shatter mountains and rivers was pierced through by this single slash of the sword before being sliced into 2. In an instant, the terrifying aura between heaven and earth disappeared, and so did the light that filled the sky. The sky was clear again, and Lin Xian sneered disdainfully. You want to rob me with such strength? You're overestimating yourself. You're courting death. The old man was enraged, and his eyes were shining with a terrifying light. His white hair danced wildly in the wind. He was an expert of the older generation, and as a mighty figure, his strength was extremely terrifying. How could he allow a young man to mock him in public? Therefore, in the next moment, he pulled out a blood-red saber and slashed down. Boom! The void trembled, and the blood-red saber light shone as if a blood-red river was descending from the sky. Boom! Lin Xian sneered and quickly counterattacked. The black demonic sword in his hand transformed into an extremely mysterious trajectory. It immediately collapsed the void and collided with the blood-red saber light. Bang, bang, bang. The intense collision caused sparks to splatter. The sound of the collision was like thunder, causing the surrounding mountains to collapse and the ground to sink. However, what was even more shocking was that terrifying blood-red saber light was shattered in an instant. The black sword chi was like a black dragon that roared incomparably. It quickly rushed towards the old man. Oh no! The old man's pupils constricted. He did not expect the other party to be so powerful. In the next moment, he opened his mouth and spat out a green shield in front of him. Bang! However, it was not very useful. The green shield was sent flying by the sword. In the next moment, the old man was so scared that his scalp went numb. He turned around and fled. Chapter 2095. Whoosh! He barely dodged this shocking sword strike, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. However, in the next moment, all the hair on his body stood on end. That was because Lin Xian's second sword was quickly approaching him. This sword was even more terrifying and terrifying. It directly cut the entire sky in half, and the sun and moon seemed to be on the verge of shattering. Ah! The elder tried his best to resist, waving out thousands of blood-red saber lights to form a defense. In fact, he was even wearing a suit of armor. However, it was useless. As the sword slashed down, countless saber lights were shattered, and the defense was cut open. The elder was directly cut in half. Blood spurted out and dyed the sky red. This scene directly stunned the remaining 3 powerhouses on the 11th prince's side. The 2 young men on the 4th prince's side below were also completely dumbfounded. This level of combat power was simply too terrifying. Impossible. Damn it. How is this possible? His combat strength seems to be even stronger than in the first round. These people were about to go crazy. They did not know that in just a few days, Lin Xian had obtained the storage rings of several elite powerhouses. He had consumed all the treasures in the storage rings. Not long ago, he had also consumed the purple gold blood dragon ginseng and other treasures. With the support of so many treasures, of course his strength had increased. Furthermore, the 2 sword strikes from before were no ordinary sword strikes. Those were 2 sword strikes that Lin Xian had used the great dragon sword soul when he was serious. The other party had underestimated him. So how could he block it? In the next moment, Lin Xian's gaze turned and looked at the other 3 warriors. The 3 powerhouses immediately felt their scalps go numb, and they hurriedly said, "It's a misunderstanding, a complete misunderstanding. We definitely won't dare to do anything to you. We'll leave now." What a joke! The strongest elder on their side had been cut in half by the other party's 2 sword strikes. Even if all of them attacked together, they would not be enough. Therefore, these people hurriedly shook their heads. "You want to leave? Leave behind your valuables, and I'll spare your lives." "Yes, yes, we'll stay here." The 3 cultivators hurriedly took off the storage rings on their hands, threw them into the void, and then ran away scared witless. Su Chen waved his hand and put the 3 storage rings away. At the same time, he also put away the old man's storage ring. The next moment, he turned around and stared at the 2 people behind him. "What are you trying to do? I'm warning you, don't mess around. Our elders and experts are inside." When the 2 young men saw this scene, their scalps went numb. Lin Xian sneered. "Don't worry, I won't kill you too, but your mouths are too cheap, so I naturally have to punish you." Pa, pa, pa. With a wave of his hand, a gust of wind filled the sky. It tore through the void and slammed into the 2 men's faces. The 2 of them were slapped into pig heads in an instant. They fell to the ground and screamed incessantly, "If you dare to provoke me again, I'll kill you directly." The 2 young men were so scared that they quickly nodded and ran away as if they had gone mad. What a joke! The other party's methods were too powerful. They were beaten to the point where they didn't even have the strength to fight back. If they stayed any longer and angered the other party, they might really be killed by the other party's sword. Therefore, they could only run away. Lin Xian moved his feet. "Let's go and take a look at the Big Dipper ruins." Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei followed behind him. Then the 3 of them walked forward. However, when they were 5 meters away from the cave, an extremely violent airflow suddenly came from the cave. Then it turned into a shocking sword ray and slashed fiercely. "Oh no!" Seeing this, Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing's pupils constricted. The 2 of them quickly retreated to the sides. Lin Xian snorted coldly. He tapped his feet and instantly disappeared on the spot. The next moment, he appeared on the other side. However, at this moment, Lin Xian's gaze was solemn. Like 2 divine rainbows, they pierced through the void and stared straight ahead. At this moment, a figure walked out of the cave in front of them. It was a middle-aged man in black. He had a cold smile on his face as he said calmly, "You managed to dodge my attack. You're quite strong indeed to be able to dodge my attack." No wonder you're so arrogant. But your bit of strength is still not enough to look at in front of me. Kid, I heard that you have the Jade Buddha King token on you. Hand it over obediently and count out to me 3 times. Then I'll let you go. Otherwise, you'll end up miserable. Hearing this, Lin Xian frowned. He asked coldly, "Who are you?" The other party was very powerful. He was much stronger than the old man from before. Moreover, he found that the other party was also using a sword. He was obviously a swordsman. "Who am I?" "They all call me the Qinquan Sword King. I heard that you just got the title of the #1 swordsman. However, you're too arrogant. Do you really think you can be the #1 swordsman with your strength? You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even I don't dare to call myself the #1 swordsman. What strength do you have to be the #1 swordsman? You'll know whether you're strong or not after you try." Lin Xian snorted coldly. There was a dazzling sword light on his body. Waves of powerful fluctuations quickly surged out like a vast ocean. Sensing this aura, the Qianquan Sword King also frowned. The other party had actually hidden his strength. It was indeed beyond his expectations. However, in the next moment, he snorted coldly and quickly waved the long sword in his hand. A dazzling sword light flew out. His sword qi caused the entire world to shake. This sword was truly terrifying. So powerful. In the distance, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei were also shocked when they saw this scene. "Should we go up and help?" Duan Qingqing asked. Her eyes were bursting with a sharp light. On the other hand, Lu Fei stopped her. "Don't make a move first. Let's wait and see. We're all geniuses. When we're fighting one-on-one, how can we allow others to intervene?" Lu Fei understood this point. That was why he stopped Duan Qingqing. In the face of the terrifying sword, qi flying in front of him, Lin Xian also quickly waved the demonic sword in his hand. Streaks of sword light flew out. Each of them was as black as a mountain. They were like giant dragons dancing in the sky. The void was riddled with holes. Clang! The sword qi of the 2 people clashed in the air, producing an earth-shaking sound. "Hell's Sword Lotus!" Lin Xian quickly waved his sword qi. Then a huge sword qi lotus was formed in front of him. On top of it, there were black flames dancing. Then, with a slash of his sword, the black sword qi lotus flew forward rapidly and spun continuously. Every time it spun, there would be a large amount of sword light. The blazing light shredded the entire void. Boom, boom, boom. The Qianquan Sword King felt the impact and kept retreating. He felt an immense pressure, which made him extremely shocked. He couldn't believe it at all. Previously, he thought that the other party was unworthy of his reputation. But now he realized that the other party was really strong. He didn't seem to be weaker than him. This was especially true for the lotus flower in front of him. The sword qi it carried was extremely terrifying. Not only that, but there was also an incomparably terrifying flame that made him shudder with fear. Chapter 2096. Get lost. The Heaven and Earth Sword King roared, emitting a terrifying light. His eyes were like 2 lamps shining in all directions. Heaven and Earth Sword technique. He quickly waved the long sword in his hand, and the sword qi in the sky swallowed and emitted light, as if it had turned into a rain of swords. It emitted a fluctuation that made one's soul tremble. This was the Heaven and Earth Sword technique, which was extremely terrifying. Once it was used, the sharp edge cut the entire void. Not only that, but the black lotus in front was also affected. It trembled violently, and the light on it dimmed a lot. Boom! At this moment, the Heaven and Earth Sword King gathered thousands of sword qi and slashed out, splitting the flame lotus in half. Then, the long sword in his hand turned into a bolt of lightning, piercing towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian snorted coldly. His eyes flickered, and he fought back with all his might. The 9 underworld demonic sword in his hand exploded, emitting a terrifying power. Streaks of sharp sword light tore the sky. The two of them kept clashing, causing the entire world to explode. Fortunately, the Big Dipper ruins below were ancient ruins, which was extremely mysterious. That was why it could survive the storm. Otherwise, it would have collapsed like the other mountains. Heaven and Earth Sword technique, Starlight Slash. At this moment, the Heaven and Earth Sword King roared. Suddenly, a huge blue sword light flew out like a comet across the sky, slashing towards Lin Xian. Whoosh! Lin Xian used Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps and dodged quickly. The terrifying sword light brushed past his body. Suddenly, the mountains in the distance were slashed into ruins. Although it didn't hit, the aftershock of the sword chi still made him activate the Ice Guardian. However, it wasn't over yet. The Heaven and Earth Sword King's black hair fluttered like a god of death. Streaks of terrifying sword light slashed over quickly. Each of them was like a shooting star, unusually sharp. The terrifying sword light that filled the sky made Lin Xian's face change. He had no choice but to fight back with all his strength. Boom! Another blue sword light brushed past Lin Xian's body and flew into the distance. It landed on 3 mountains in the distance and directly exploded with a terrifying energy. A mountain that was thousands of feet tall was split in half. How terrifying! In the distance, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei's expressions changed. The Qianquan Sword King's attack was too clever. After comparing the two of them, they realized that the two of them couldn't win at all. Perhaps Lin Xian was the only one who could contend against him. Lin Xian did indeed feel a great deal of pressure. Honestly speaking, this Heaven and Earth Sword King was worthy of being a senior figure. He was even stronger than Sword 13, First Blade, and the others. At the next moment, his eyes emitted a terrifying glow, and a dragon sword domain appeared around him. It floated up and down, as if there was an azure dragon circling around him. Boom! In the next moment, Lin Xian made his move. Another sword light slashed down. This sword contained the power of a king's domain, and it displayed a terrifying might. It was as if an azure dragon had rushed down from the sky. Not only that, but this azure dragon also had blue ice crystals on its body, giving off a terrifying chill. Everywhere it passed, the world was sealed in ice. The ice broke. All of a sudden, a thick layer of frost covered the entire area, as if it had turned into a world of ice and snow. The sword strike made the Cosmos Sword Gleam frown. He didn't expect that the other party's strength had increased again. This made him extremely shocked and in disbelief. Damn it, where was this kid's limit? Could it be that he was still hiding his strength? The Heaven and Earth Sword King was too shocked. He had already performed the Heaven and Earth Sword technique and even performed a few killer moves. However, he couldn't do anything to the other party. This was something he had never encountered before. Moreover, what shocked him even more was that the other party wasn't a senior figure, but a young man in his 20s. In the next moment, he also roared, and the terrifying power in his body surged out again. Heaven and Earth Sword New Moon Scar. The Heaven and Earth Sword King held the sword with both hands, causing the long sword to rapidly expand, turning into a 1,000-feet-long divine sword. With monstrous power, it slashed upward fiercely. Boom, boom, boom. This attack caused the sky to collapse and the earth to crack and ghosts to wail and wolves to howl. The terrifying vibrations were like 10,000 thunderbolts descending, completely shattering the entire sky. With the two of them as the center, all the mountains within 100 miles were instantly turned into powder. And within 1,000 miles, the ground sank and the trees collapsed. Not only that, but the waves were also fast waves. In an instant, everything within 1,000 miles was plunged into chaos. As for Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei, they quickly rose into the air and retreated 10,000 miles away to watch the battle. They didn't dare to stay any longer, because if they stayed here, they would be affected by the terrifying energy, and the two of them would probably be injured. Buzz, buzz. On Lin Xian's body, a terrifying icy aura surged, freezing the surroundings. At the same time, a huge ice goddess appeared, spreading her wings to protect him, forming a powerful defense. Even the surrounding energy shockwaves were frozen. On the other side, a battle armor appeared on the Heaven and Earth Sword King's body. Not only that, but the sword light that filled the sky formed a sword curtain around him, blocking the terrifying energy shockwaves. Both of them were forced back 3,000 meters, and the blood in their bodies surged rapidly. However, at this moment, Lin Xian's lips curled into a cold smile. Then the power in his body rose again, and the great dragon sword soul rumbled rapidly in his body. Soon after, flames appeared outside the ice barrier and danced about. Then a huge flame giant appeared. It was 10,000 feet tall, bathed in flames, and roared into the sky, shattering thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. Following Lin Xian's action, a 10,000 feet long flame sword appeared in the flame giant's hand, emitting a monstrous divine aura. Fire god roar! The sword slashed down, annihilating the starry sky and shattering the mountains and rivers. The powerful sword Qi turned into a fire dragon, covering the sky and earth. Whoosh! Wherever it passed, the void cracked, and the ground was scorched black, courting death. On the other side, the Heaven and Earth Sword King was furious. The other party actually dared to take the initiative to attack him, which was unforgivable. In the next moment, he roared and rushed over quickly with the Heaven and Earth sword light in the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The two of them exchanged blows, constantly colliding, causing the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. However, at this moment, the great dragon sword soul in Lin Xian's body resonated again, turning into a dragon shadow that coiled around his body. The power of his sword Qi erupted again. Boom. In the next moment, the Heaven and Earth Sword King was directly sent flying. The sword screen in front of him cracked, and LV Jinguang slashed his body, sending him flying. The Heaven and Earth Sword King vomited large mouthfuls of blood, looking miserable. His eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. How was this possible? How was this possible? How did the other party have such a powerful sword Qi that was even stronger than his? He couldn't fight against it at all. He couldn't believe it. Up until now, the other party's strength had already increased 3 times, and each time, the sword Qi was more terrifying than before. This made him feel like he had gone crazy. It was as if he was dreaming. However, the truth was right in front of his eyes, so he had to believe it. Damn it! How was this possible? Could it be that he had been hiding his strength from before, and this was his true strength? The Heaven and Earth Sword Light was extremely shocked. Who was the other party? How could he have such a terrifying sword Qi at such a young age? No, could it be that the other party wasn't from the younger generation, but an elder in disguise? But that shouldn't be. Even an elder wouldn't have such a terrifying sword Qi, unless he was a peerless powerhouse. But that kind of figure couldn't enter this second round at all. The Heaven and Earth Sword King went crazy. He thought about it, and also couldn't figure out why the other party was so powerful. The next moment, he gritted his teeth and wiped the bloodstains from the corners of his mouth. His entire person was incomparably cold. Kid, you really infuriated me. Originally, I didn't want to use my full strength, but since you're courting death, then don't blame me. Heaven and Earth Domain. The Heaven and Earth Sword King also displayed his king domain. Immediately, the domain emerged, emitting a monstrous aura. It enveloped a part of the void. Now, the battle was over. The Heaven and Earth Sword King gave a cold cry and urged the Heaven and Earth domain with all his might. Immediately, terrifying sword light surged to the sky, enveloping the entire sky. That unparalleled sword Dao aura turned into a series of terrifying rainbows, piercing through all directions. 10,000 miles away, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei watched this scene, and their scalps tingled. This Heaven and Earth Sword King's domain was so terrifying. No idea if Lin Xian could contend with it. Sure enough, within a radius of 10,000 miles between heaven and earth, terrifying sword Qi crisscrossed, as if splitting heaven and earth, carrying a supreme aura, and in front was the Heaven and Earth Sword King floating. He opened his hands, and 10,000 sword Qi surged out of his body rapidly, moving together with the entire heaven and earth domain, as if he was the ruler of heaven and earth, able to control the entire domain. The next moment, he brandished 10,000 sword Qi, slashing forward. Tens of thousands of sword Qi condensed, turning into one terrifying sword wave after another, rushing down. The surroundings were completely enveloped, and every part of space was incomparably terrifying, killing intent. Kid, do you see it? This is my king domain. No matter how strong you are, the gap in cultivation realm can't be made up at all. Now, let's destroy you in my domain. The corners of the Heaven and Earth Sword King's mouth curled into a hint of a cold smile. Chapter 2097. This scene was simply too terrifying. One had to admit that the Heaven and Earth Sword King's domain was incomparably terrifying, as if it could split heaven and earth apart. Humph! Lin Xian also snorted coldly, holding the demonic sword in his hand. The combat power on his body was revolving to the extreme. In the next moment, his dragon sword domain also released an incomparably terrifying light. Then it turned into a sharp light and blasted out fiercely. Boom, boom, boom. The two's king domains collided, causing the void to explode. Everything within a radius of 10,000 miles was completely devoured. Every part of the space was filled with terrifying energy. Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei retreated again, because the place they were originally standing was directly shattered. Boom, boom, right at this moment, the Heaven and Earth domain suddenly emitted a piercing light, and then it was torn apart. What? The Heaven and Earth Sword King's domain was split open? How was this possible? Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei were both stunned. Although they knew that Lin Xian was very powerful, they also knew that the other party could contend with the Heaven and Earth Sword light. But they did not expect that Lin Xian was actually so powerful, splitting open the Heaven and Earth Sword King's domain with one sword. Was this heaven-defying? Boom. In the next moment, the Heaven and Earth Sword King vomited blood and flew out. His expression became incomparably ugly. There was not even a trace of blood on his face. Shocked, he was simply too shocked. That was his domain, his incomparably powerful killing move. But now it was actually split open by a sword. Who was the other party? How could he be so powerful? In the next moment, he was scared out of his wits. This was because Lin Xian let out another long roar, and the green dragon sword domain flew over once again. Boom. In an instant, the Heaven and Earth Sword King was sent flying again, vomiting large mouthfuls of blood. Half of his body was already hacked apart. Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing were dumbfounded upon seeing this. The two young men from before were even more terrified. They knew how powerful the Heaven and Earth Sword King was. They did not expect that at this moment he was actually seriously injured. The Heaven and Earth Sword King was sent flying, smashing onto the ground, causing countless cracks to appear. Next, he roared at the sky, incomparably crazy. However, in the sky, Lin Xian snorted coldly, took a step out, and charged over again. Seeing this scene, the Heaven and Earth Sword Monarch no longer dared to be angry. His expression became extremely ugly as he turned around and fled. What Qianquan Sword King? He's just SOL. How dare he compete with me for the #1 swordsman with such strength? Lin Xian sneered in disdain. Wielding his devil's sword, he quickly charged over. Whoosh whoosh, the two of them turned into 2 rays of light and entered the cave one after the other. Seeing this scene, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei also moved their bodies and quickly followed. Inside the cave, there was indeed another space. It was extremely vast, far from being as ordinary as it looked from the outside. The terrain here was complicated, but the Qianquan sword was very familiar with it. After all, he had been here before. He directly passed through the layers of caves and flew inside. Lin Xian coldly snorted and followed closely behind. There were many formations and restrictions inside, but they were all broken by the Qianquan sword monarch and the other two. At this moment, there were 2 other powerful beings in the depths. They were the companions of the Qianquan Sword King. One was Elder Great Sorrow Palm King, and the other was Senior Duan Yunhan Cloud. The 2 of them were currently focused on setting up a trap. At this moment, Duan Yunhan frowned and asked, "Why hasn't the Qianquan Sword King returned after such a long time?" Great Sorrow Palm said, "What are you anxious for? Dealing with a brat, can you fail miserably? Don't worry. The Qianquan Sword King is absolutely 100% confident. We just need to break the restrictions here properly." The 2 nodded, then quickly took action. Not long later, they frowned, because they felt a violent energy fluctuation coming from ahead. Someone came in. This aura was the Qianquan Sword King. Seeing this scene, the 2 laughed. You see, didn't I say it? Dealing with a brat like him is as easy as blowing off dust. But in the next moment, they were stunned, because they discovered that it was indeed the Qianquan Sword King flying over. However, it was different from what they had imagined. The current Qianquan Sword King was in a very sorry state. Most of his body was beaten up, dripping with blood. His hair was disheveled, and there was no trace of blood on his face. It could be said that he was in an extremely sorry state. What's going on? How could this be? The Qianquan Sword King was injured? When the 2 saw this scene, they were extremely shocked and could not believe it at all. Could it be that a peerless expert came? Or could it be that the other teams came? The 2 were extremely nervous because, in their opinion, someone who could injure the Qianquan Sword King was definitely not an ordinary person. Perhaps it was a supreme powerhouse under the top 3 princes, or an extremely powerful team could injure the Qianquan Sword King. Humph, where are you going? Just as they were guessing, a cold snort came from ahead again. Then a young figure entered their field of vision. What's going on? A young man? They were stunned. How could a young man be chasing after the Qianquan Sword King? This was too illogical. However, when the Qianquan Sword King saw Lin Xian's figure, his scalp went numb. He hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoists, this kid is too powerful. Help me stop him." As he spoke, the Qianquan Sword King hurriedly took out a large number of heaven and earth treasures from a storage ring and quickly swallowed them. At the same time, he quickly repaired the broken half of his body. What? Could it be that this kid injured the Qianquan Sword King? The other 2 powerhouses were stunned. What's going on? They knew the strength of the Qianquan Sword King. He was extremely powerful and terrifying, not weaker than them. However, he was injured by a kid. Although they didn't quite believe it, looking at the Qianquan Sword King's expression, it shouldn't be fake. However, Lin Xian also stopped here. He looked at the 3 people in front of him with flickering eyes, and then said coldly, "Fourth Prince, I'm sorry, but this place is already occupied by me. Hurry up and get lost." What? Kid, don't be too arrogant. You're courting death. No one has ever dared to talk to me like that. You're the first, so you're dead meat. Hearing Lin Xian's words, the two powerhouses in front were furious. What a joke. A kid actually dared to tell them to get lost. This caused them to be extremely furious. In the next moment, cold, killing intent appeared in their eyes, and a terrifying aura instantly enveloped the entire space like a tide. However, at this moment, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei also arrived. When they heard Lin Xian's words, they also felt dizzy. Damn, what kind of joke is this? Is this guy crazy? How dare he challenge them directly? Didn't he see the two terrifying elite powerhouses in front of him? Neither of them was weaker than the Qianquan Sword King. How could they fight? Lin Xian said with a smile. Don't worry, the Qianquan Sword King is already crippled and can't exert much combat power. As for the other two, the two of you can fight one together, and I'll deal with the other one. Junior, you're too arrogant. Hearing that the other party was going to divide them up, the two powerhouses' faces turned black. Who were they? Were they ordinary people? They were terrifying elite powerhouses. They could destroy everything with a raise of their hand. However, at this moment, they were being looked down upon by three juniors. Were they going to die from anger? Therefore, they directly attacked. Kid, I'll let you know the consequences of provoking us. Among them, King Dabii snorted and attacked. Chapter 2098. The old man stretched out his hand and emitted a terrifying light. Then he struck out with his palm. Merciful palm. Suddenly, a white palm appeared quickly. It was like the hand of a demon god, and terrifying energy surged. Like a tsunami, it swept across the sky. Not only that, mysterious runes appeared around the palm and began to rapidly revolve around it. It emitted a mysterious aura. Seeing this, Lin Xian snorted and slashed out with his sword. At the same time, he said loudly, "This old man is mine. I'll leave the other one to the two of you." With that, he ignored Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei and rushed up quickly. He swung his sword, and the terrifying sword Qi was like a divine red with a destructive aura. It crushed his void slash and collided with the giant white palm. Clang! Suddenly, an earth-shattering sound was heard, and terrifying energy exploded. Fortunately, this was an ancient ruin. All the surrounding buildings had runes on the ground, forming a strong defense. Otherwise, it would have destroyed everything within a 10,000-mile radius. However, even with the array restrictions, the earth shook as if there was an earthquake. Lin Xian did not stop after the sword fell. He seemed to be opening and closing the river, waving the terrifying demonic sword. With a raise of his hand, he could split the void. The white palm trembled, and its light dimmed. Even the mysterious runes around it began to disappear. What? He's so strong. King Dubei's face changed drastically. He did not expect Lin Xian's sword Qi to be so strong that his merciful palm could not withstand it. No wonder this person could severely injure Qianquan Sword King. He's really strong. Thinking of this, his face became unusually gloomy. He no longer dared to be careless, and was ready to go all out against Lin Xian. Kill! At this moment, Lin Xian let out a furious roar. Then, terrifying sword ripples surged forward with him as the center. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The void was sliced open and could not withstand it at all. On the other side, King Dubei's pupils constricted. In the next moment, he waved his fingers and spat out a thunderous sound wave from his mouth. The sound wave was very strange. It was like a Buddhist scripture. He could not understand it, but it carried a mysterious power. What kind of cultivation technique is this? Lin Xian frowned. He had never encountered such a cultivation technique before, so he was naturally very surprised. However, he soon sneered. So, what if it was a miraculous cultivation technique? He would not fear it. In the next moment, The great dragon sword soul in his body began to circulate rapidly. Above Lin Xian's long sword, terrifying sword waves appeared. With a slash of his sword, the terrifying sword Qi transformed into an eagle that spread its wings and soared into the sky, carrying a sky full of spiritual energy sword waves and hellfire. It flew forward. Pung. On the other side, King Dabii roared and slapped out with his palms. Two large white palms transformed into two white tigers charging over at high speed. Boom, boom. Heaven and earth trembled as the two white tigers were cleaved apart by the sword. King Dabii was sent flying as he coughed up blood. What was going on? How could a sword Qi be so powerful? The great Compassion King was sent flying with a horrified look on his face. At this moment, he had the same fear as the Heaven and Earth Sword King. That was because his opponent's sword light was simply too terrifying. It made him feel as if he was facing a peerless almighty. But how could it be possible that his opponent was just a young boy? On the other side, King Duan Yunwang was fighting fiercely with Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing. When he saw this, he frowned. What was going on? How could King Dabii be injured? Could it be that his opponent was so powerful? Thinking of this, his face became extremely gloomy. In the next moment, he said in a deep voice, "King Dabii, let's exchange." All right, King Dabii nodded. Although the exchange of opponents showed that he was no match for Lin Xian, he had lost face. However, he could not care less. If he continued to fight, he was afraid that he would be seriously injured or end up like the Heaven and Earth Sword King. He did not want that to happen, so he decisively exchanged opponents. After King Duan Yunwang arrived, he immediately used his ultimate skill, Duan Yunwang's hand. He reached out with one hand and slapped Lin Xian viciously with a frighteningly large palm. On the palm, there was a colorless light shining like a rainbow. Boom. When the palm landed, the air was directly blasted apart, and an extremely dark black hole appeared. Not only that, but there was also an endless fire burning around it. The terrifying temperature caused the entire space to distort. Seeing this, Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing's faces changed. What kind of divine ability was this? It was so terrifying. Fortunately, the other party did not use it on them before, or the two of them would definitely be under great pressure. Lin Xian furrowed his brows as well. His opponent's palm was absolutely terrifying. Even he could feel a scorching aura surging in his direction. Most likely, an ordinary almighty would have been reduced to ashes under this palm. Therefore, Lin Xian did not take it head-on. He tore the void and used the Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps. He even disappeared on the spot and appeared in another place. Boom. The place where he was originally standing was smashed to pieces, but King Duan Yunwang did not give up. He directly used the cloud-breaking palm continuously, striking out terrifying palm shadows one after another, chasing after Lin Xian. Humph! Seeing this, Lin Xian snorted coldly and directly used the Dragon Sword Realm to envelop his opponent. "Refine for me," he shouted loudly, and also entered the Dragon Sword Realm. The Dragon Sword Realm bloomed with light, and countless sharp auras swept across heaven and earth. Terrifying killing intent permeated in all directions, causing one's scalp to go numb. Some sword chi overflowed and directly pierced through the opponent's 5-colored palm. Then it turned into countless fragments and scattered on the ground. Ah, boom. King Duan Yunwang screamed as his fingers bled. His face was incomparably ferocious. His opponent had actually broken through his ultimate move. How was this possible? In the next moment, he roared and also used his king's domain. Suddenly, a 5-colored king's domain appeared and contended with the Dragon Sword Realm. The two collided, and the void shattered. Terrifying energy swept in all directions. The surrounding spiritual energy was instantly sucked dry. Not only that, King Duan Yunwang stretched out his palm and merged his domain with his palm. In the next moment, he stretched out his palm again and grabbed over. Lin Xian used the demonic sword and drew a mysterious trajectory. Suddenly, the power of lightning appeared on his body, and then he turned into a lightning figure and quickly rushed out. Wild, thunder heavenly eagle. The sword slashed down, and sword light instantly flashed. The eagle flew up. This sword was too fast. It was so fast that no one could react in time. Sure enough, just as he slashed out with his sword, King Duan Yunwang screamed in pain. His palm bled again, and it was even split in half. Not only that, the wild thunder eagle exploded first, and the terrifying power of lightning enveloped his opponent. This caused the sky and earth to be completely pierced through by lightning. Boom, boom. When the lightning descended, King Duan Yunwang was in a very sorry state. His body was charred black, and many parts of his body were injured. A terrifying wound had appeared on his palm. He probably wouldn't recover for a while. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Whether it was Lu Fei, Duan Qingqing, the Qianquan Sword King, or the Great Compassion King, they looked at Lin Xian with fear in their eyes. Was this a human? Was this a young man? How could there be such a terrifying young man? They didn't dare to imagine. Chapter 2099. All of a sudden, everyone was terrified, especially Qianquan Sword King and the others. Their expressions were extremely ugly. Lin Xian's sharp aura surged again. He was about to attack. However, at this moment, Qianquan Sword King suddenly shouted, "Wait! Stop!" Hearing this, Lin Xian frowned, but the demonic sword did not descend. However, his aura did not weaken. He asked in a deep voice, "Why? Are you trying to play some tricks again?" "You're thinking too much. We don't have the strength to play tricks in front of you." Qianquan Sword King sighed. Although he had suppressed his injuries, the sword wounds on his body could not be completely removed. This made it impossible for him to recover his full combat strength. Moreover, he was not the only one. King Broken Cloud and King Dabii were also injured. If they continued to fight, they would have no chance of winning. If they were lucky, the three of them could escape. If they were lucky, they would have been killed. Either way, they did not want to see it happen. Therefore, Qianquan Sword King stood up, looked at Lin Xian, and said in a hoarse voice, "I know that we were wrong for having thoughts about you. We apologize to you here. However, this Big Dipper ruins is not simple. I'm afraid that with the strength of the three of you, you won't be able to break it in a short time. Why don't we work together to break this Big Dipper ruins?" Hearing this, Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing were stunned. They also retreated and came to Lin Xian's side. The two of them did not speak. Instead, they looked at Lin Xian because Lin Xian was the leader. Lin Xian's eyes flickered. He thought for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Okay. However, I want 90% of the items inside." 90%. Hearing this, Qianquan Sword King was stunned. King Dabii and King Duan Yunwang's faces turned extremely ugly. "Kid, you're too arrogant." They were really surprised. Since they were working together, they thought that it would be 50-50. However, they did not expect Lin Xian to directly ask for 90% of the treasures, while the three of them could only split the remaining 10%. What kind of joke was this? However, Lin Xian sneered. "What? Since they were unwilling, there was no need to continue the discussion. Do you think you can win if you continue fighting?" At that time, they probably wouldn't even get 10% of it, right? At this point, the aura on his body became incomparably terrifying once again. Damn it, they had gone too far. Yunduan, Wang Ji, and the others also wore ferocious expressions. Qianquan Sword Monarch also spoke up at this time. 10% is too little. No matter what, we are still the main force. Even if we can't defeat you now, we will still go all out when we break the array later. Therefore, we want 30% of the treasures. Otherwise, we won't be satisfied. 30%? Impossible. Lin Xian sneered. 20% at most. If you don't want to do it, scram. 20%. Hearing this, the Qianquan sword monarch's eyes flickered. The other two mighty figures also had gloomy expressions, but in the end, they gritted their teeth and decided to join forces. Although it was only 20%, if they resisted now, they wouldn't even be able to get a single strand of hair. On the other hand, Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing were stunned. Heaven was joining forces with 3 elite mighty figures, and they would get 80% of the treasures alone. Why did it sound like a dream? To be honest, they didn't expect this way of distribution. However, Lin Xian was too strong. He suppressed the 3 mighty figures so much that they couldn't even raise their heads. Next, the Qianquan sword monarch and the other 2 sat down cross-legged to recover some of their strength. Then they began to set off. The Qianquan sword monarch and the other 2 walked in front, while Lin Xian and the other 2 walked behind. They joined forces to break the array restriction. In front of them was an underground palace. It was very majestic, but it had a dark and gloomy aura. The walls were filled with the vicissitudes of time. King Dubei waved his hands, creating afterimages and slapping the bridge in front of him. Suddenly, the wall seemed to come alive, and runes appeared on it. It emitted a dazzling light. Then, the door in front of them opened with a bang, revealing a few pairs of scarlet eyes. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the ground around them began to tremble. In the end, light arrays appeared one after another. Within those light arrays, figures also appeared from the ground. Seeing this, Duan Jingjing and Lu Fei immediately became nervous. Even Lin Xian's face darkened. Suddenly, Duan Qing shouted, "Damn it, what did you guys do?" Along the way, it was safe and sound. There were only some defensive arrays that stopped them from moving forward. However, there was no danger around them. But now, there were so many monsters surrounding them. Duan Qingqing and the other 2 couldn't help but suspect that the Qianquan sword monarch had secretly done something to frame them. The Qianquan sword monarch and the other 2 were also shocked. To be honest, they didn't expect this to happen. Lin Xian's eyes flickered. He looked around and said in a deep voice, "Be careful, be careful." This should be a monster summoned by the array. He was also an array master, so he could tell at a glance that these monsters should have been guarding this ruin. Boom, boom, boom. Therefore, if they wanted to enter the ruin, they had to be clear of these monsters. There were dozens of skeleton monsters around them. Each of them was wearing ancient armor and holding a bronze spear. There was a cold aura around them. There was no flesh on their bodies, only their skeletal heads. Their heads were skulls with green flames dancing in their eye sockets. Bang, bang, bang. As soon as these skeleton soldiers appeared, they raised the bronze spears in their hands and quickly pierced through the void, rushing towards Lin Xian and the others. Lin Xian snorted. Then he flicked his finger, and a sword wave spread out in all directions with him as the center. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sharp sword wave was like a tide, slashing in all directions. The void was instantly cut into pieces, and the skeleton soldiers were also cut in half. Not only him, but Duan Qingqing, Lu Fei, and the Qianquan sword monarch's men all attacked. Soon, they cut all the skeleton soldiers around them into pieces in 2 or 3 moves. But soon, they frowned because they found that it was useless. The skeleton soldiers that were broken into pieces on the ground began to tremble. Then, those fragments were intertwined by a mysterious force and turned into skeleton soldiers again. They looked exactly the same as before, and even their aura did not weaken. What was going on? They couldn't be killed? Seeing this scene, Duan Qingqing frowned. In the next moment, he used the bone-melting soft palm, and a gentle force poured into the 5 skeleton soldiers in front of him. Bang! When those skeleton soldiers were hit by the palm, they immediately exploded into pieces. But soon, they were reunited again. Humph! At this moment, Lu Fei also snorted and stabbed out with the spear in his hand. It was like a silver dragon roaring in the air. The terrifying force directly scattered the 4 skeleton soldiers in front, but it was also useless. The Qianquan sword monarch's side also encountered the same situation. These skeleton soldiers couldn't be killed at all, and they were quite strong. At this moment, dozens of them were piled up together, and it was very terrifying. If this dragged on, they would definitely be in danger. What was even more terrifying was that it wasn't just these skeleton soldiers. The door in front opened, and then a dozen black figures rushed out quickly. It was a group of strange birds that looked extremely ferocious. There were blue runes on their bodies that flickered with an inexplicable power. Whoosh! As their wings flapped, there was a terrifying demonic wind. The demonic wind contained a cold, murderous aura. Even if a mighty figure was blown too much, they would probably be injured. Therefore, Duan Qingqing and the others did not dare to fight head-on. Boom, boom, boom. Not only these strange birds, but a few lizard-like beasts also appeared in the surroundings. They had red runes on their bodies, and they opened their mouths to spit out balls of flames that turned into a sea of fire that filled the sky. In an instant, countless monsters completely surrounded Lin Xian and the others. Crack, crack. However, Lin Xian and the others were strong, so they could still resist for a while. But there was a change again. Chapter 2100. The Heaven and Earth Sword King's expression changed because one of his legs was swept by the demonic wind. His leg immediately froze as if it had turned into stone. The power contained in the demonic wind could petrify people. Everyone was shocked. The Heaven and Earth Sword King roared, and countless Heaven and Earth Sword chi rushed out of his body, emitting a terrifying aura, and directly shattered the petrification power. In the next moment, his figure retreated with horror in his eyes. Fortunately, these demonic beasts were not too strong. In fact, they were much weaker than them. Therefore, they could only petrify a little. If their strength was the same as theirs, they would all turn into statues when the demonic wind blew. Those flames were also unusual. They could continue to burn when they jumped onto a person's body and were difficult to extinguish. Therefore, the Heaven and Earth Sword King and the others were under great pressure. Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing were also fighting with all their strength. Lin Xian frowned. He had to admit that these monsters were very strange. Although their individual strength was not very strong, each of them was very strange. For example, some could not be killed, some could be petrified, and some had flames that could not be extinguished. It could be said that this was something that he had never encountered before. In the next moment, he activated the great dragon sword soul and immediately swung out a terrifying sword chi, killing the 3 skeleton soldiers beside him. Immediately, those skeleton soldiers were sent flying, and then they quickly regrouped. But this time, the situation was different. Those skeleton soldiers before could regroup well, but this time, the skeleton soldiers that were slashed by the great dragon sword soul's power could not be completely healed. That sword mark was left there forever. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. Meanwhile, Duan Qingqing, the Heaven and Earth Sword King, and the others were shocked. What was going on? How could the other party's sword chi hurt these skeleton soldiers, especially the Heaven and Earth Sword King? They were too shocked. One had to know that the 3 of them were all elite, mighty figures with many ultimate moves in their hands, but they could not do anything to these skeleton soldiers. However, Lin Xian only slashed out a few times, and these skeleton soldiers were severely injured. They could not even heal. This made them extremely shocked. What kind of sword technique did the other party master? Why was it so terrifying? Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing did not understand. Only Lin Xian knew. This was the power of the dragon sword soul. With the terrifying sword qi of the great dragon sword soul, it was very difficult to erase it. No matter how mysterious these skeleton soldiers were, they were unable to erase the aura of the great dragon sword soul. Since that was the case, things would be easier. In the next moment, he stomped his foot, and the sword runes under his feet instantly covered the entire ground. Demon-slaying sword array. With a furious roar, the soul demon sword suppression was unleashed. Then, thousands of sword qi surged forth. These sword qis were all strengthened by the power of the great dragon sword soul, becoming incomparably sharp. Soon, they pierced through all the surrounding skeleton soldiers. This time, it wasn't just split open, it was directly smashed into pieces. Therefore, these skeleton soldiers never materialized again. Seeing this scene, everyone gasped. They didn't expect Lin Xian to have such a powerful swordsmanship. However, at this moment, Lin Xian shouted, "Come to my side." The next moment, he used the dragon sword domain and quickly surrounded everyone. Then he turned into a torrent and rushed forward. A roar was heard. It was as if an azure dragon was coiling around. It went on a rampage. Suddenly, the surrounding flame beasts and the strange blue birds in the sky were all attacked. They were pierced by countless sword qis and nailed to the void. Go! Lin Xian led these people directly into the underground palace. After entering, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei heaved a sigh of relief. Those monsters from before were simply too strange. They emitted a mysterious and unfathomable energy. This was because of the strange spirit stones. At this moment, Lin Xian opened his palm. In the center of his palm, there were 5 pieces of strange spirit stones. Each of them was the size of a walnut. They were emitting a bright light. "Where did you get these strange spirit stones?" Duan Qingqing, Qinquan Sword King, and the others were also shocked. It was obtained from the skeleton soldiers and the other monsters. Lin Xian said, "After I pierced them with sword qi and killed them completely, these things appeared in their bodies. In the end, they gathered together and formed these strange spirit stones. I see." At this moment, King Dabii also said in a deep voice, "It seemed that it should be an ancient secret method that used a mysterious formation to carve these monsters and then used the strange spirit stones as an energy source. That was why they were so mysterious and strange." At this point, he sighed. He was also an elite of the older generation and a powerful almighty. However, at this moment, facing Lin Xian, he felt a strong sense of defeat. The other party was much younger than him, but the other party's methods were far above his. If one didn't know better, they would really think that he was an old monster. Lin Xian waved his hand and put away these strange spirit stones. These things also contained pure energy. If he absorbed them, it would definitely improve his cultivation. Everyone led the way again, this time with Qinquan Sword King and the other 2 in front. They were also eager to kill a few monsters. Maybe they could also get some strange spirit stones. Along the way, the formations and restrictions were broken by Qinquan Sword King and the other 2. Lin Xian and the other 2 walked behind, and it was easy for them. Soon, they came across the second palace gate again. Suddenly, they stopped and looked at the dark gate in front of them with a serious expression. Lin Xian said, "Let's go in and see what's inside." Hearing this, King Broken Cloud nodded. With a wave of his hand, a huge cloud-like palm covered the sky and blasted forward. Accompanying it was a fierce aura. Boom! He slammed his palm on the huge palace gates. Immediately, the huge palace gates were like 2 huge mountains. They let out a rumbling sound and then slowly opened. The light inside was a little dark and even a little chaotic. Everyone's eyes couldn't see through. This surprised Lin Xian and the others. One had to know that they were all powerful kings. Their king's eyes could pierce through the void, but at this moment, they couldn't see the situation inside. It seemed that the inside of this palace wasn't simple. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Qian Kun's Sword King and the other two looked even more serious. They immediately activated their armor, and a shining armor wrapped around their bodies. Then they stepped inside. Lin Xian also had a ball of sword qi of spiritual energy above him and wrapped him up. In addition, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei also used defensive means. After all, it was better to be careful in the face of unknown danger. The group walked in. It was a little dark, and there was no movement. Everyone could only hear their own heartbeats. Buzz, buzz. At this moment, the sword qi on Lin Xian's body reacted. The sword qi on his body surged rapidly and made cutting sounds as if it was cutting something. However, there was nothing around. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Lin Xian, on the other hand, frowned. The sword qi on his body contained the energy of the dragon sword soul. It was extremely mysterious and could cut through the void. It could even hurt one's soul. At this moment, the sword qi was changing. It was definitely not simple. Although they couldn't see some things, it didn't mean that they didn't exist. What was it? Lin Xian frowned, and then used his soul power, but he couldn't see anything. Left with no choice, everyone could only be more careful and walk forward. However, not long after, Duan Qingqing, who was beside him, suddenly went limp and almost fell. Fortunately, Lin Xian was beside her and supported her. What's wrong? Lin Xian frowned and asked. Duan Qingqing was powerful, and this shouldn't have happened. However, in the next moment, he was stunned. Chapter 2101. That was because he realized that Duan Qingqing was not the only one affected. Lu Fei, Qian Kun's Sword King, and the other two were also affected. Their faces were pale, and their bodies were on the verge of collapsing. Damn it, how did this happen? Duan Qingqing gritted her teeth in confusion. Qian Kun's Sword King, and the other two were even more terrified. They frantically channeled their inner force, and their eyes widened. Oh no, we're poisoned. Poisoned? Everyone was shocked. They could not believe it. What kind of poison could make them so weak? They were all powerhouses. Even if there was poison, they would be able to sense it in advance. However, they could not sense it at all. They only realized it when they were deeply poisoned. No wonder. Lin Xian furrowed his brows. Previously, his sword qi had been making sizzling sounds as if it was destroying something. In other words, it was destroying the poisonous gas. Therefore, he was the only one who was not poisoned. Hurry up and detoxify, Lin Xian said. I'll protect you. In the next moment, they nodded and sat down cross-legged, preparing to detoxify the poison. However, at that moment, the sound of the void, fluctuating, could be heard. Immediately after, a cold aura could be felt. In the darkness, a few scarlet eyes stared at Lin Xian and the others. Damn it, what's that? Everyone's hair stood on end when they were stared at. Lin Xian condensed his palm. Countless flames intertwined in his palm and formed a light ball the size of a millstone. Then he waved his palm, and the fireball flew into the sky. It emitted an incomparable light and illuminated the surroundings. In the next moment, everyone saw green poisonous snakes swimming towards them. Their eyes were cold, and they were emitting murderous intent. They were definitely not ordinary poisonous snakes. Each of them seemed to have the strength of a 6-star demon king. Buzz. At that moment, a poisonous snake flew up quickly, turning into a green lightning bolt and dashing forward. King Dabii roared, "Get lost!" In the next moment, he slapped his palm. Boom! The void exploded, and an earth-shattering sound was heard. Then King Davy-Eye's face turned even paler. Meanwhile, the poisonous snake was smashed into a bloody mist. However, the poisonous snake exploded and turned into a green poisonous mist that shrouded the surroundings. Then King Davy-Eye was poisoned even more. 5 lightning strikes. At this moment, Lin Xian formed a seal with his fingers. Streaks of violent lightning aura rushed out from his body and condensed in the sky. Thunderclouds formed and collided with each other. Then 5-colored lightning descended and struck the green demonic snakes. Instantly, they were scorched black and pierced through. In an instant, these poisonous snakes were all killed. However, Lin Xian didn't relax because he felt an even larger and colder aura quickly surge towards him. Whoosh. Then, the void in front of him was mercilessly torn apart and a huge creature walked over. It was also a venomous snake, but it was much larger than the previous ones. He seemed to be more than 3,000 meters tall. Its body was covered with green patterns, and this giant python had a human face. It was extremely pale, and its tongue was very long. It was estimated to be 500 to 600 meters long. Furthermore, it had 4 arms, each of which was holding a weapon. There were sabers, swords, spears, and shields. The giant python charged over quickly and tore through the void. Then it stared at Lin Xian and the others and let out a roar. Instantly, a terrifying sound wave rushed over. Ka, ka, ka. The void couldn't withstand it at all. The sound wave was too terrifying, and it carried the true power of wind and thunder. In an instant, it quickly enveloped Lin Xian and the others. Not good. Seeing this huge creature launch such a fierce attack as soon as it appeared, the pupils of the Qianquan Sword King and the others shrank. In the next moment, their scalps went numb, and they decisively attacked. Qianquan Sword Technique. With a roar, the Qianquan Sword King's body emitted a sharp light. Then a light formation was formed in front of him. Countless sword chi rampaged, and the power of the sword tore through the void. Merciful palm. On the other side, the Great Mercy King slapped out with both hands. His huge palms were covered with mysterious runes, and the power they emitted made people want to kneel down. Duan Yun's palm. A huge palm slapped out with an incomparably majestic power, as if an endless demonic mountain was descending. Facing the terrifying sound wave, the Qianquan Sword King and the other 2 used their ultimate moves. On the other side, Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei also resisted. Lin Xian even pulled out his demonic sword and slashed out with an incomparably violent power. The terrifying sword Qi covered the sky and the earth, and the destructive power was vast and mighty between heaven and earth. His sword was too fierce, and the whole world was trembling. The sound wave was even split in half. Lin Xian and the others used all their strength to block the terrifying sound wave. However, the 6 of them looked extremely solemn because this was just a sound wave from the other party, and it was already so powerful. If this giant snake attacked with all its strength, how terrifying would it be? Sure enough, the giant python attacked in the next moment. Its 3,000-meter-long body twisted, and then its long tail swung over like a long green blade. The violent power directly tore through the void. Not good. Seeing this, everyone's scalps went numb. They couldn't care less about the poison in their bodies and could only swallow some pills in a panic to suppress the poison in their bodies. Then, they quickly counterattacked. In the end, they appeared in all directions, and waves of terrifying energy blasted towards the green python in front of them. Lin Xian also attacked quickly. The 9 darkness demonic sword in his hand released tens of thousands of sword rays, and the terrifying sword Qi completely enveloped the whole space. Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei also attacked together, and the violent energy directly drowned the space around them. The 6 great experts attacked at the same time, and the heaven and earth exploded, wanting to kill the giant green python. Boom. However, they still underestimated the giant green python. The sweeping tail really had the power to shatter heaven and earth, and it directly blew up the void. Then Lin Xian and the others retreated, and the giant python also rolled over. However, this time, the giant green python was angered. It roared at the sky, and a sinister look appeared on its face. Green fog floated out from all directions, and that was the poisonous gas. And there were poisonous snakes swimming around quickly, and each of them had the strength of a 6-star demon king. They were extremely terrifying, and they wanted to swallow Lin Xian and the others completely. Humph! King Dubei snorted coldly, and a palm stretched out, covering heaven and earth. The palm was covered with runes, and it suddenly slammed down. Boom! The earth trembled, and the whole world was shaking. The 6 people attacked, and the poisonous snakes were instantly smashed into a bloody mist. However, more of them pounced on them. Kill! Lu Fei and the others roared, and they quickly attacked. Lin Xian let out a long roar, and terrifying flames surged from his body. Fire deity roared. It was an ultimate move, and it quickly attacked the giant green python in front of it. The giant green python released a terrifying light, and then it waved the long saber in its hand and rushed out quickly. The saber was like a green lightning, and the terrifying energy split heaven and earth. It directly collided with Lin Xian's flaming sword qi. The energy exploded, shattering the surrounding void, and the poisonous snakes below were instantly blasted away. Lin Xian and the others were impacted, and they kept retreating. However, in the next moment, all of them stared at the giant green python. They knew that they had to kill this guy first, or else they would not be able to move forward, and their lives might be in danger. Cloud-breaking palm. Great compassion mantra palm. The 2 of them performed their ultimate moves, and suddenly 2 huge palms appeared in the void. One was like a cloud, and it was extremely ethereal. The other was extremely huge, like the palm of Buddha. Boom, boom, boom. The 2 palms slammed heavily on Giant Mang, and the sound shook the void. The surrounding space was constantly shattered, and the entire space was shaking rapidly. Chapter 2102. The green python rolled on the ground in pain. At the same time, its huge tail swept over, and its 4 arms also attacked quickly. Saberlight, sword qi, spearlight, and shield attack. Terrifying energy tore through the void and blasted towards Lin Xian and the other 5. The 6 of them fought with it in an earth-shattering battle. Fortunately, this was an ancient ruin, or it would have collapsed long ago. Even so, the battle was earth-shattering, and the void shattered. Apart from Lin Xian, Duan Qingqing, and the other 4 were getting more and more poisoned, and it seemed that the poison was about to break out again. Lin Xian had no choice but to send out the great dragon sword soul. An azure dragon coiled around his arm, emitting a terrifying light. The sharp aura shot into the sky. Seeing this scene, the faces of Duan Qingqing, Qianquan Sword King, and the others changed. They did not expect Lin Xian to have such a trump card. The aura that was emitted shocked them and sent chills down their spines. There was even a death-like threat. Boom! Lin Xian stretched out his palm, accompanied by a huge azure dragon. The palm covered the sky and the earth as if it was the hand of the heavens, and directly grabbed the green python. The green python roared crazily and launched a terrifying counterattack to resist the azure dragon's palm. Suddenly, a deafening sound resounded between heaven and earth, as if countless divine thunderbolts were descending. However, this move was the power of the great dragon sword soul, and it was extremely terrifying. Therefore, no matter how the green python counterattacked, it was useless. Boom! The huge azure dragon's palm slammed down, and instantly the green python's head exploded. Buzz! Green blood spurted out like a waterfall. A fist-sized divine crystal flew out of the head. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian was overjoyed. He directly grabbed it and put it away. Although the others were envious, they could only shake their heads at this moment, because the poison in their bodies was about to break out. 2 hours later, these people opened their eyes and heaved a sigh of relief. They had finally expelled the poison from their bodies, and at this time, Lin Xian had already dissected the huge snake. Among them, the huge snake gallbladder was chosen and put away. He said, "You can divide the rest of the things except for the snake skin." Duan Qingqing and the other 4 didn't hesitate and quickly walked up. Duan Qingqing kept the shield, while the Qianquan sword monarch took the sword. Duan Yun wanted the long blade, while Lu Fei wanted the long spear. Henceforth, the 4 weapons of the green python were divided between the 4 of them. The great Compassion King did not ask for weapons. He asked for the fangs of the poisonous snakes. In short, the 5 of them had gained quite a lot. After all, this green python was extremely terrifying, and its entire body was full of treasures. After that, they did not continue their journey. Instead, Lin Xian suggested that they prepare to rest. There was nothing he could do about it. It seemed like there were more palaces at the back. However, the first 2 palaces were already so terrifying. Who knew how terrifying the ones at the back would be? Therefore, he felt that it was better to let everyone recover to their peak condition first. Duan Qingqing, Qianquan sword monarch, and the others nodded in agreement. Although the poison in their bodies had been cleared, their physical strength had been greatly depleted. Therefore, the group sat down cross-legged and prepared to cultivate. Lin Xian took out the xenogeneic crystals he had obtained earlier and began to absorb the energy inside. The xenogeneic crystals contained miraculous energy. They were only slightly inferior to divine crystals. Therefore, the effect of absorbing them was surprisingly good. Soon, Lin Xian finished replenishing the energy he had consumed. Not only that, but he also absorbed them with all his might. In the end, he directly propped up the dragon sword's spiritual field and placed the xenogeneic crystals inside, refining and absorbing them with all his might. Lin Xian did not use the divine crystal and the snake egg. He wanted to wait until he finished absorbing the xenogeneic crystals before absorbing the divine crystal. As for the snake gall, Lin Xian had other uses for it. He was prepared to refine some elixirs for consumption. This green python was extremely terrifying. Moreover, it was estimated that it had lived for thousands of years. Its cultivation and strength were close to that of an almighty. The effect of such a snake gall was not inferior to those treasures of heaven and earth. It might even be stronger. If he used it well, it might be able to increase his cultivation by a lot. Lin Xian knew that time waited for no one. He had to enter the almighty realm as soon as possible. Only then could he climb to a higher level of martial arts. Thinking of this, he looked at the huge corpse beside him. According to the 20-80 split, after letting Qianquan Sword King and the others take the weapons, the huge corpse would be his. This thing was also a treasure. The snakeskin was very sturdy. They could not completely break it after so many attacks. In the end, it was Lin Xian who used the great dragon sword spirit to shatter its head with a palm. If this thing was made into a battle armor, the effect would probably be better than the black armor. Therefore, Lin Xian did not hesitate and put away the 3,000-meter-long corpse. Seeing this, Qianquan building and the other sighed. To be honest, they were very jealous because they also knew that the corpse was a huge treasure. Not only the snakeskin, but also the flesh and blood that contained powerful energy essence. However, they had no choice. This was killed by Lin Xian. Moreover, there was a 20-80 split agreement previously. Therefore, they could only watch with jealousy. Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei were fine. After all, they were closer to Lin Xian. Moreover, the two of them had obtained treasures and were very satisfied. After half a day, Lin Xian stood up and said, "Let's go and see what's in the next palace." The others also stood up. After half a day of rest, they had recovered their strength. Therefore, they did not delay and set off for the next palace. After walking for a long time, Qianquan Sword King and the others took action again to break the formation. Then, the third palace appeared in front of them. This palace was even more magnificent and huge. At the same time, the vicissitudes of life were even more intense. This made everyone have to be careful. It seemed that the monster inside was even more terrifying than the python from before. Lin Xian took a deep breath and punched out. His fist turned into a black dragon and rushed forward, opening the huge palace door. Then a black armor appeared on his body, and he strode in. The people behind him also put up their defenses and followed carefully. After entering, Lin Xian activated the dragon sword's spiritual realm and enveloped everyone. Countless sword chi surrounded him. With the previous experience, he did not dare to be careless. If there was any poison in here, he would be able to defend himself immediately. This time, nothing happened to the sword chi. This made him heave a sigh of relief. Then he said, "Don't worry, there shouldn't be any poison." Duan Qingqing, Qianquan Sword King, and the others also heaved a sigh of relief. If there was no poison, it would be much easier. At least they did not have to be afraid. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just as the six of them walked forward, the ground began to tremble, and runes began to light up from the ground. Suddenly, the entire space was lit up as if it was daytime. Then, everyone was stunned because there were a few huge creatures in front of them. In front of them was a stone man that was more than 300 meters tall. His body was covered in moss, as if he had not moved for a long time. Around him were 6 smaller stone men that were about 50 meters tall. Each of them was like a statue that stood there. Chapter 2103. The 7 stone golems stood there quietly like statues, emitting a powerful aura. Seeing this, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Duan Yunwang, let's work together to deal with the big one. As for the other 6 stone golems, Qingqing, you 4 deal with them." "Okay, no problem," the group agreed. Then Duan Yunwang and Lin Xian walked nearby, ready to attack the 300-meter-tall stone golem. Qingqing and the other 3 were ready to attack the other 6 stone golems. Boom! Lin Xian was the first to attack. He clenched his hand into a fist and punched out. It was like a black dragon rushing forward. Instantly, it hit the stone golem's body. Boom! In the next moment, the stone golem's body did not shatter. Instead, there was a loud explosion, as if thunder from the 9 heavens was roaring. Buzz! The 300-meter-tall stone golem opened its eyes. Its huge eyes were like 2 pieces of crystal, without any emotion. Roar! In the next moment, it raised its 2 stone arms high into the sky. Then, it raised its head and let out a deep and distant roar. The roar echoed in the entire space, like the surging waves of the sea. Along with the roar, the 6 stone golems around it also opened their eyes. In the next moment, they also let out roars like 10,000 beasts. Attack! Seeing this scene, Lin Xian snorted coldly. Then, he and Duan Yunwang charged towards the giant stone golem like lightning. Qingqing and the other 3 worked together and used their king's domain to envelop the other 6 stone golems. Boom! A great battle erupted, and a terrifying light shone between heaven and earth. Pung! Cloud Sea! Broken Cloud King was the first to roar. He waved his hand, and a gust of wind blew in the entire space. Clouds and mist appeared, and the void was quickly torn apart. It was dark and terrifying. Then, the clouds and mist drifted toward the stone golem. Although they looked soft, the power they contained was terrifying. It was a kind of soft power that could inadvertently shatter the void. Sure enough, when the clouds and mist turned into waves and surged forward, they collided with the stone golem. It was like two mountains colliding in the air. Roar, roar, roar. However, this large stone golem was indeed extraordinary. Its body seemed to be forged from incomparably precious, immortal gold. In the face of such a terrifying attack, there was not even a trace of injury. However, at this moment, Lin Xian also made his move. He waved the demonic sword in his hand. Immediately, streaks of pitch-black sword light surged out rapidly. The sword Qi was like a rainbow, extremely cold, as if it could destroy everything in the world. Clang! Clang! However, the giant stone golem's eyes glowed with a piercing cold light. It waved its stone hand to contend with Lin Xian's sword aura. The two collided, causing the heavens to collapse and the earth to split. Sparks flew in all directions as the void was pierced through. Upon seeing this scene, Lin Xian frowned deeply, while the broken Cloud King sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of monster was this? How could it resist the sword Qi with its bare hands? One had to know that Lin Xian's sword Qi was extremely terrifying. Even elite almighties would not dare to fight it with their bare hands. However, the stone monster in front of them was actually able to block it and wasn't even injured. It was truly surprising. Boom! Just as the two of them were shocked, the giant stone golem suddenly bent down and slapped its hands on the ground. After slapping 18 times in a row, the entire ground trembled and countless cracks appeared. Following that, 18 earth dragons rushed out from the ground. Each of them was incomparably ferocious as they quickly charged towards Lin Xian and Duan Yunwang. Boom, boom, boom. Every earth dragon was incomparably huge. They filled the sky and instantly shattered the void. The terrifying figure instantly enveloped Lin Xian and Duan Yunwang. Duan Yunwang's palm, Cloud Mountain. The broken Cloud King roared as he continuously slapped his palms to resist the earth dragons. On the other side, Lin Xian also frowned. Powerful. This stone golem was simply too powerful. It was even more terrifying than the python from before. Lin Xian planned to go all out. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The dragon sword realm floated around him. The sword Qi within it spun rapidly, stirring up heaven and earth. Rays of terrifying sword light bloomed, illuminating the entire sky. Kill. With a roar, he brought the dragon sword realm with him and charged over quickly. Thousands of sword Qi shone brightly in the sky. Each of them was like a peerless divine sword that made people tremble. Terrifying energy blasted towards the sky. In an instant, 9 of the earth dragons were enveloped. As for those earth dragons, they roared ferociously as if they were real beasts. They tore through the void and swept their huge dragon tails and dragon claws downwards. The two forces of energy collided, causing heaven and earth to shatter. It was as if heaven and earth were being split apart, but soon cracks appeared on the 9 earth dragons. Following that, their bodies suddenly exploded. On the other side, the broken Cloud King had also shattered the other 9 earth dragons and reappeared in the void. The two of them charged towards the giant stone golem from the left and right. The giant stone golem was expressionless. It was as immovable as a mountain. It was like a god that looked down on all living beings. He stretched out 2 stone-like palms and slapped forward. Suddenly, a majestic aura surged between heaven and earth. 2 black figures quickly appeared and charged forward like 2 demonic mountains. Roar of the fire god. Lin Xian immediately summoned the shadow of the fire god. Immediately, a huge fire god appeared and waved its fist to fight against the terrifying palm. On the other side, Duan Yunwang also used his king's domain. It formed a huge palm that covered the sky and rushed forward. Boom! The void shattered. The broken Cloud King's palm blasted the giant back. However, Lin Xian's flame giant was even more terrifying. The black flames wrapped around the giant and burned it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. For a moment, the black flames spread as if they could burn everything. The giant roared crazily and roared towards the sky. Its eyes shone with a terrifying light. It was obvious that this flame was a huge threat to him. In the next moment, it clapped its palms and leaped high into the air. Then it turned into a stone ball and rolled down. Wherever it passed, heaven and earth would shatter. Nothing could stop it. As it rolled, it formed a powerful impact that charged towards Lin Xian. At the same time, the flames on its body were extinguished. Wild, thunder, heavenly eagle. Lin Xian used the heavenly dragon's 8 steps and quickly dodged. At the same time, he formed a seal with his palm and shot out a lightning sword light. He transformed into an eagle and flew forward at high speed, directly blasting forward. Suddenly, the lightning eagle slashed a hole on the giant's body. Many stones even fell from the stone golem's body. Boom, boom, boom. This scene caused a huge reaction. An earth-shattering sound rang out. Then, the giant let out an angry roar. He clenched his fists and emitted an ancient aura. The fist was like thousands of mountains as it flew over quickly. Although it was 2 against 1, the stone golem was still not at a disadvantage. It was hard to imagine how powerful the other party was. However, it seemed that it was not a human creature. Instead, it was a special existence that Lin Xian and the others could not imagine. What was it? Lin Xian frowned. Chapter 2104. Lin Xian was indeed too shocked because the giant stone man in front of him was extremely terrifying, far beyond his imagination, especially since the other party's defense was too strong. If he didn't have the great dragon sword soul, he wouldn't be able to break through such a defense. It seemed like he could only go all out. Lin Xian's gaze gradually turned piercingly cold. The demonic sword in his hand flickered incomparably, sending chills down one's spine. In the next moment, he slowly raised the long sword in his hand. Buzz! With a thrust of the sword, a terrifying energy surged in the air as if thousands of soldiers and horses were galloping. The clouds in the sky churned as huge waves swept across. The sword Qi directly slashed forward. Boom! The sharp sword Qi was like a heavenly river pouring down, ruthlessly slashing the giant stone man's body and sending him flying. Boom! At this moment, Lin Xian slashed out a second time. The terrifying sword light could devour the sky and split the earth. The sharp killing intent tore through the void. There was even a dragon's roar in the sky. With endless aura, it once again enveloped the giant stone man. Boom, boom, boom. The entire space was almost overturned. The giant stone man was once again sent flying, crashing into the ground. This time, 2 terrifying cracks appeared on his body, and the surrounding ground was even more ravines that spread in all directions. Seeing that scene, everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air because they discovered that the incomparably tough, huge stone man was finally injured. Their understanding of Lin Xian's sword Qi deepened once again. Roar! As for the giant stone man, he climbed up from the ground. Looking at the 2 huge sword wounds on his body, he was infuriated. In the next moment, he let out a furious roar. A terrifying sound wave swept out in all directions, shaking the entire space. This sound wave was so terrifying that it made Duan Qingqing, the Qianquan Sword King, and the others tremble. Even their souls were trembling. Duan Yinhuang's pupils shrank as he kept retreating. Lin Xian snorted coldly. Countless sword qi rushed out from his body, turning into a huge green dragon that appeared on his body. The green dragon coiled around, looking lifelike, as if it was a real, divine beast. Its domineering aura destroyed the terrifying sound wave. Boom, boom. At this moment, everyone's expression changed again, because the giant stone man in front of them clenched his fists and reached towards the ground. Suddenly, the earth rumbled, and a huge earth snake quickly formed in his hand. It was incomparably ferocious, and its body was extremely huge. It extended into the distance, and one couldn't see the end of it. The earth snake roared ferociously. Suddenly, the earth shook as if there was an earthquake. Then, the giant stone man held the earth snake in his hand like a spear and danced quickly. Boom. With a thrust of his spear, the heavens fell and the earth cracked. This spear was too frightening. Lu Fei, who was also a spear expert, had his pupils shrink as his face turned incomparably pale. That was because he realized that even though they were both using spears, the other party's cultivation far surpassed his, making it impossible for him to resist. The terrifying long spear transformed in the sky, forming a long snake that was thousands of miles long. It roared ferociously and quickly charged towards Lin Xian and Duan Yinhuang. Endless waves of qi rolled in the sky. The violent fluctuations caused the void to shatter in an instant. Not good. Retreat quickly. When the broken Cloud King saw this scene, his expression changed drastically. His instincts told him that he could not block this attack at all. He could only dodge quickly, and that was exactly what he did. He retreated rapidly, pulling apart the distance between them in an attempt to avoid the attack. However, Lin Xian did not move. He stood in front of them like a divine spear, emitting an incomparably terrifying aura. Beside him, a dragon sword domain floated up and down, circling around his body. It transformed into an azure dragon, coldly staring ahead. Then, an incomparably terrifying power erupted from Lin Xian's body. Destroy. Lin Xian spoke, his voice cold and emotionless. At this moment, the void cracked open as countless divine lightning bolts descended from the sky. Each of them carried a shocking sword light as they struck down fiercely. In an instant, the terrifying spear light was shattered. Boom, boom. The earth snake in the giant stone man's hand also collapsed in an instant, countless cracks appearing on its body. What? How could he be so powerful? Duan Yinhuang was stunned. In the face of this attack, there was no way he could resist. Lin Xian only spat out 2 words and directly shattered the other party's attack. His combat strength was too terrifying. Could it be that this kid had already become a peerless almighty? Perhaps only a peerless almighty could easily resist the attack of this giant stone man. No, he was not a peerless almighty. Soon, Duan Yinhuang shook his head because there were rules in this stage. A peerless almighty could not enter at all. In other words, the other party was at most almighty. However, such powerful combat strength made him gasp. In front of them, Lin Xian's expression was cold. The area around him had already turned into chaos. The giant dragon sword realm enveloped him, making it impossible for others to see clearly. Therefore, at this moment, a golden light appeared in his eyes, emitting an unfathomable aura. This was the heavenly secret divine eye. At this moment, it was used by him, and its effects were unparalleled. Therefore, he soon found the flaw of the giant stone man. It was not the head nor the heart, but 100 meters below the heart. There was a bowl-sized energy crystal there, emitting a hazy glow. Of course, This could only be seen with the heavenly secret divine eye. Ordinary people could not see it at all. Seeing this, Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. Thinking about it, that should be the divine crystal. It was the divine crystal that allowed the giant stone man to move. If he took out the divine crystal, the giant stone man would collapse on its own. Thinking of this, he took a deep breath. Then his eyes became sharp again. Reaching out his palm, the azure dragon shadow on his body quickly spread and covered his palm. Lin Xian's palm turned into a ferocious dragon head. Dragon catcher hand. Lin Xian's palm grabbed forward. Suddenly, the void exploded, and a giant azure dragon appeared, emitting a terrifying aura. The speed of this palm was extremely fast. It directly split the void, forming a huge crack. Lin Xian's palm arrived in front of the stone man in an instant. What fast speed! Duan, Yunwang, Qianquan Sword King, and the rest saw this scene, and their pupils shrank. The speed was too fast, and it made them extremely shocked. The stone man roared and raised his hand to punch, trying to block it. Boom! In the next moment, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Violent energy was stirred up rapidly, and a huge crack appeared in the void, spreading in all directions. Soon, something shocking happened. The azure dragon shadow did not disappear. Instead, the giant stone man's palm collapsed rapidly, and countless rocks fell. Boom! In the end, more than half of the palm was shattered, but the dragon catcher hand was still grabbing forward fiercely. His target was the crystal that was 100 meters below the heart. Roar! The giant stone man also sensed the danger. He roared crazily and turned his huge body trying to dodge. But he was too slow. In the next moment, he was caught by Lin Xian. Cracks appeared on his tough body, and then it collapsed. The dragon catcher hand reached into the giant stone man's body and grabbed the bowl-sized crystal. Chapter 2105. Boom! In the next moment, Lin Xian retracted his palm and took out the crystal. When the crystal left the body of the giant stone man, the stone man was stunned. Then countless cracks appeared all over his body. Like a broken porcelain doll, he turned into countless gravel and scattered on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. Dust flew and spread in the surroundings. The ground collapsed, and the entire underground palace shook rapidly. At this moment, not only the giant stone man, but the 6 small stone men also stopped attacking and roared at the sky. Their voices were filled with endless desolation. Then, the 6 little stone golems also quickly crumbled. Cracks appeared on their bodies, and they turned into a pile of rocks. Since then, all the stone men had been completely destroyed. Lin Xian waved his hand and summoned the huge divine crystal from the 300-meter-tall stone man pile. Then he put it away. Then he said, "You guys can divide the rest." Indeed, this divine crystal was enough for him. The rest were different crystal elements. Although they were not as good as divine crystals, they were still very precious. Therefore, Duan Qingqing, Qianquan Sword King, and the others did not hesitate and quickly divided them. When they were done dividing the items, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the ground in front of them. Then a stone platform protruded and formed something like a stone platform. There were mysterious runes flashing around. Above the stone platform, there were 3 treasure chests. Each of them was made of gold and engraved with mysterious runes. What are these? Is there a reward? Everyone saw this scene. He sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and stared at the front. To be honest, this scene was also out of his expectations. However, it should be a reward. What are we waiting for? Let's do it. Qianquan Sword King and the others were looking at it with burning eyes. Lin Xian waved his hand and stopped them. Wait, it's not that simple. What's wrong? What did you find? Everyone asked. because they knew that Lin Xian's current strength was very strong. Perhaps they could find some special secrets. Lin Xian said in a deep voice, "Did you see the runes of the array formation? This was an ancient array formation. I have some understanding of it. This array is a selection array. In other words, we can only choose one of the three boxes." "What? I can only choose one of them?" Duan Yunwang asked. Lin Gongzi, "Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure. I also want all three boxes. However, that was impossible. If they tried to force their way in, they probably wouldn't even be able to get a single chest. What to do?" Hearing this, everyone fell silent. However, Lin Xian said that it wasn't a big deal. One chest was already pretty good. After all, it was an unexpected gain. So, let's think about which box to choose first. Everyone agreed. There was no point in arguing about anything else now. They had to choose the chest that contained the most treasures. But which one should he choose? The three chests looked exactly the same on the outside. They were shining with golden light and were tightly shut. It was impossible to see what was inside. "Let me have a try." The great Compassion King stood out. He channeled his soul power and pounced forward. But soon, his soul was bounced back because there was an invisible force that prevented him from probing. He couldn't see clearly. Duan Jingjing, on the other hand, took a deep breath and stepped forward. She once again took out the ancient mirror and injected a stream of energy into it. Buzz, buzz. The ancient mirror flickered, but this time it was chaotic and couldn't reflect anything. "How could this be?" Duan Qingqing exclaimed. This was too unbelievable. Her mirror was a very magical treasure that allowed her to see everything around her clearly. However, at this moment, she couldn't see the three golden chests clearly. At this moment, Lin Xian waved his hand, and the dragon sword realm shrouded him. It formed countless sword qi and blocked the view of others. Then he used the heavenly secret god eyes and looked forward. The heavenly secret god eyes was extremely mysterious. He finally saw through the layers of fog and mysterious power and looked forward. Soon, Lin Xian's mouth curled into a smile because he had seen the things that existed in front of him. In the first golden chest, there was an old scroll. It seemed to be a cultivation technique. Moreover, a cultivation technique that could appear here must be of a high grade. If others saw this scene, they would definitely be tempted. After all, a high-grade cultivation technique was very tempting to them. However, Lin Xian was able to keep his composure. His eyes were even brighter as he looked forward. Chaotic Heaven Destroyer Sword. Elementary Heaven Tier Cultivation Technique. Seeing this scene, Lin Xian's pupils constricted and he took a deep breath. Heaven Tier Cultivation Technique. There was actually a Heaven Tier Cultivation Technique inside. He was too shocked. One had to know that the best cultivation technique he cultivated was only Earth Tier. He didn't have a Heaven Tier Cultivation Technique. He had seen the power of a Heaven Tier Cultivation Technique. Previously, Bai Zijing had a Heaven Tier Cultivation Technique, 9 Revolution Heavenly Origin Sword. Its power was indeed terrifying. If he didn't possess the great dragon sword soul, he wouldn't be able to contend against it. But now, he actually saw a Heaven Tier Cultivation Technique. How could he not be excited? However, he still took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his body. Then he looked at the second chest. In the second treasure chest, there was a piece of metal. It was blue in color like a star, shining with a cold light. This was starry cold light iron. Lin Xian sucked in a breath of cold air. He had learned a lot of knowledge from the Crimson Dragon and Hey Tuesday. Among them, there were some extremely precious natural treasures. The starry cold light iron in front of him was a legendary precious metal. Legend had it that this wasn't something from the continent, but a star from the 9 heavens that fell onto the continent after being struck. This kind of metal was very precious. It could even be said that it could only be encountered by chance. This was because when ordinary stars fell, they would burn. Many would burn cleanly and turn into ashes. Only an extremely small portion could be preserved. This kind of starry cold light iron, whether it was used as a weapon or a defensive tool, its power was extremely powerful. Therefore, when he saw the second chest, Lin Xian's eyes flickered, and he was extremely tempted. Now, in terms of defense, he had the black cloak battle armor, sword chi defense, and the ice protection. Moreover, he had just obtained a huge python skin. It was so sturdy that it could be used to make armor. However, in terms of attack, he only had the 9 demonic sword. Although it was very powerful, it wouldn't be long before it couldn't keep up with his speed of improvement. Chapter 2106. After all, this demonic sword was used after he had just stepped into the king realm, and he was already a 6-star king now. Presumably, it wouldn't be long before he became a mighty figure, an even more terrifying existence. And it seemed like the 9-way demonic sword in his hand should also be changed. Now, the starry cold light iron in front of him was an excellent opportunity. If he could forge a treasured sword that belonged to him, then his combat strength would be even more terrifying. However, should he choose a heaven-tier cultivation method or a precious metal, Lin Xian was extremely hesitant for a moment, but in the next moment, he decided to look at the 3rd metal box first. He wanted to see what was inside the 3rd box. Inside the 3rd gold treasure box was a piece of divine crystal. The size and purity were about the same as the piece Lin Xian obtained from the giant stone man. If it was under normal circumstances, this thing would definitely cause a group of mighty figures to go crazy when released. Even peerless mighty figures were not spared. But now, Lin Xian did not pay too much attention to it, because although this thing was good, it could also be obtained elsewhere. For example, stone gambling. He believed that with his heavenly secret divine eyes, he would be able to cut out divine crystals sooner or later. However, the first 2 things could only be encountered by chance and not sought. If he missed it at this time, he might never see it again in the future. Very soon, Lin Xian thought about it and gave up on the 3rd gold treasure box. However, the 1st gold treasure box and the 2nd gold treasure box, which one to choose, he fell into a dilemma for a moment. And outside, Ching Ching, Heaven and Earth Sword King, and the rest were also extremely puzzled. They saw the light flickering on Lin Xian's body, but they could not see what his expression was at all. Lin Gongzi, can you see clearly what's inside the gold treasure box in front of you? Right at this moment, Heaven and Earth Sword King asked carefully. However, Lin Xian did not answer. He was not in the mood to answer right now. He was currently considering which of the 2 things he needed the most. However, after thinking about it, he realized that he wanted both of the items, because whether it was cultivation methods or weapons, they were what he lacked the most currently. There's actually a treasure in front. Right at this moment, a sound of ecstasy suddenly came from behind, followed by several powerful auras rushing over quickly. Oh no, someone's coming. Duan Qingqing, the Qianquan sword sovereign, and the others turned their heads in shock. In the next moment, their expressions turned even uglier. Lin Xian also furrowed his brows. His gaze was like lightning as he looked behind him. A few figures came from behind. They streaked across the sky like lightning and arrived near them. These people were none other than the experts under the 3rd prince's command. First Blade and Fist Tyrant were among them. Lin Xian, it's actually you, Sword Master Qinquan. You've actually joined forces. When First Blade saw this scene, he was also extremely shocked. This was because they didn't expect that Lin Xian would team up with someone else. Could it be that the eighth prince had joined hands with someone else? This was indeed not good news. However, they were not afraid. This was because this time, their lineup was also very strong. Other than First Blade and Fist Tyrant, the other three were also very strong. More importantly, they were at their peak, while the people in front of them probably didn't have much energy left in their bodies. Therefore, although they didn't have as many people on their side as the other party, their combat power far surpassed the other party. At the thought of this, the experts under the third prince immediately sneered. Among them, First Blade's eyes flickered. His gaze swept past Lin Xian and the others and looked at the front. There were 3 golden treasure chests flickering with mysterious runes. They were treasures. Seeing this scene, First Blade was overjoyed. He naturally knew that in such ruins, there would definitely be heaven-defying treasures hidden in the treasure chests. He didn't expect that they would encounter them. And from the looks of it, they hadn't been opened yet. Ha! The heavens are really helping me. On the other side, Fist Tyrant was also ecstatic. Although he wasn't as strong as Lin Xian, he wasn't fighting alone now. In terms of overall strength, they definitely overpowered the other party. Therefore, at the next moment, he snorted coldly. Kid, we've occupied this place. These treasure chests are all ours. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and get lost. Otherwise, don't blame us for starting a massacre. Damn it! Hearing this, Duan Qingqing, the Qinquan Sword King, and the others' expressions were extremely ugly. These treasure chests were obtained by killing the huge stone people with great difficulty. Now that they hadn't opened them yet, how could they let First Blade and the others take advantage of them? Fist Tyrant. First Blade, don't go overboard. We're the ones who found this place, so the treasures are naturally ours. Duan Qingqing shouted coldly. That's right, we'll give you a chance. Hurry up and get lost, or don't blame us for being rude. The Qinquan Sword King also shouted coldly. However, First Blade and the others on the opposite side sneered disdainfully. So what if you found it first? Fight with your strength. If you have the ability, fight, and see who gets the treasures in the end. They were very domineering and arrogant, not taking these people seriously at all. Damn it! Everyone gritted their teeth in anger. Then they all looked at Lin Xian and Lin Gongzi. What should they do? The Qianquan Sword King and the others asked. What else could they do? Since they were here to snatch the treasures, they naturally had to fight their way out. Anyway, there was no need to hold back in the second round. If you have any ultimate moves, use them and beat them out. The treasures will be ours. At this point, Lin Xian's gaze was sharp, and he took a step forward. The aura on his body became incomparably sharp. Seeing this scene, First Blade, Fist Tyrant, and the others were extremely nervous. After all, they had seen the other party's means in the first round. However, the 3 people from the older generation behind him snorted coldly. Anger appeared on their faces. A young kid actually dared to go against them. He's really courting death. At this moment, an old man with a white bag stood out and shouted coldly, "Kid, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I've already given you a chance to escape, but you didn't seize it. Since that's the case, don't blame me." At this point, he shouted coldly, and 108 white water pillars behind him quickly soared into the sky, circling in the air like 108 dragons. The terrifying aura was monstrous and made a deafening sound. The entire scene was extremely terrifying. The entire space shook rapidly, unable to withstand the power at all. You want to kill me? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Lin Xian sneered and took the initiative to attack. He stretched out his palm, which turned into a huge green dragon and grabbed in front of him. Boom! Wherever it passed, the void shattered and terrifying black holes appeared. Terrifying energy waves swept in all directions. Buzz! The old man in the white robe snorted and waved his palm. Suddenly, 10 silver light beams rushed forward quickly behind him. They collided with Lin Xian's palm, making an earth-shattering sound. Whoosh! There was a huge explosion of energy and a violent aura swept out. However, Lin Xian moved. His entire body was like a sharp sword cutting through the void and charging forward quickly. Chapter 2107. Buzz. In the next moment, he pulled out his demonic sword and waved it. 36 terrifying sword lights appeared in an instant, forming a huge torrent that quickly fell forward. The sword chi caused the entire space to tremble violently, not to mention space. There probably weren't many things in this world that could resist such a terrifying sword chi. You're courting death. Seeing that his opponent had taken the initiative to attack, the white-robed old man roared angrily. He waved his hands, and the 108 light pillars behind him rotated rapidly, forming a terrifying energy wave. These light pillars contained destructive energy that instantly pierced through the void. In the next moment, the 108 light pillars collided with the 36 sword chi. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying vibrations shook heaven and earth, and violent energy swept in all directions. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the 108 light pillars shattered into countless fragments and scattered on the ground. The white-robed old man was stunned. First Blade Quan Ba, and the others were also shocked because they did not expect Lin Xian to be much stronger than he was in the first round. Damn it, how could this be? How could his combat strength increase so quickly? These people had ugly expressions because during this period of time, their combat strength had also increased, and they had all obtained opportunities. They thought that they could catch up to Lin Xian and even defeat him. However, they did not expect that Lin Xian's fortuitous encounter would be even greater, and his combat strength would increase even faster. Now, not only did they not catch up, but the gap between them was getting wider. No, don't give him a chance. Let's attack together. First Blade roared angrily. He pulled out his long saber and exuded a terrifying aura. 7 blade techniques. He used his ultimate move right away. Quan Ba and the other great ancestors also made their moves, preparing to snatch the 3 golden treasure chests together. Damn it! Seeing this scene, Duan Qingqing, Qian Kun Sword King, and the others roared angrily and counterattacked quickly. For a moment, the entire space fell into complete chaos. Everyone began to fight for the 3 golden treasure chests. However, at this moment, a howl came from afar. The sound was filled with strange and powerful energy. Immediately after, a figure that looked like a red lightning bolt quickly arrived. It was a red snake that looked very strange, and even had horns and claws. On its back was a snow-white little monkey. When the 2 of them arrived, they looked at the 3 golden treasure chests in front of them and laughed strangely. Ha ha ha! Another treasure. This is great. It was all Ben Huang's. Who are you people? Get lost! When the First Blade saw someone else enter, he immediately became extremely nervous. However, when he saw that it was only 2 demonic beasts, he sneered. Then he slashed out with his blade. Although it was only a casual slash, the momentum was truly earth-shattering. Boom! It was none other than the Crimson Dragon and the Snow-White Monkey. Seeing that someone was attacking, the Crimson Dragon left a red afterimage in the air. Then, with a swing of its tail, it collided directly with the blade light. Boom! Boom! A thunderous sound rang out as a majestic power surged out. The terrifying saber light was instantly sent flying. The Crimson Dragon, on the other hand, was unharmed. What? Everyone was extremely shocked. They all knew the strength of the First Blade. It was extremely terrifying, especially that blade light. It carried a sense of despair that was like destruction. However, he was actually sent flying by the tail of the human will. What kind of demonic beast was that? Wasn't it too powerful? The first blade's face was gloomy as his eyes flickered. Who are you people? Who are we? We're the legendary bandits. Hurry up and hand over all your treasures and storage rings, and I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, Ben Huang will slap you to death. The crimson dragon floated in the sky, looking extremely arrogant. Its red dragon claws pointed downwards and made a crazy sound. The snow-white monkey on its back also waved its little claws and kept nodding. Damn, these people are stunned. Below, the corners of Lin Xian's mouth twitched. Originally, he only asked those two guys to explore the ruins and search for treasures. He did not expect those two guys to be so lazy as to choose the simplest and most violent method of robbery. Judging from the looks of the people around him, they should have already heard of those two guys. It seemed that they were not the only ones who had been robbed. Thinking of that, Lin Xian's face darkened. However, soon, the corners of his mouth curled up. That was because it was convenient for him to do things now. Soon he sent a voice transmission. Rosalong, Xiaobai, hurry up and snatch the first treasure chest. I'll go for the second one. Don't worry about the third treasure chest. Hearing that, the crimson dragon was stunned, but then its gaze shifted. Soon, it discovered Lin Xian's figure not far ahead. It immediately grinned. Previously, it did not notice Lin Xian because it was too excited and attracted by the 3 golden treasure chests. It did not expect Lin Xian to be there too. It seemed that it would definitely be a bountiful harvest this time. If the 3 of them joined forces, those people would definitely not be able to stop them. However, at that moment, Lin Xian sent another voice transmission. Be careful, there's a formation here, and you can only choose one treasure chest. Let Xiaobai retrieve the item from a distance and see if it can retrieve it. If it can't, then we can only break the formation by force. The items in the first 2 treasure chests are very useful to me, so I can't fail. Don't worry. The Crimson Dragon and Xiaobai nodded. Then Xiaobai took off the small bowl on its head and began to cast a spell. On the other hand, Lin Xian turned around and rushed forward when no one was paying attention. He used the demigods and semi-devils and was extremely fast. In an instant, he arrived in front of the 3 treasure chests. In the next moment, he reached out his palm and grabbed the second treasure chest. At the same time, a dragon-shaped sword chi appeared on his left hand, and he stabbed it into the ground. He was attacking the formation because he did not know if he could retrieve Xiaobai from a distance. If there was no formation defense, he could definitely retrieve it. However, the formation was too magical. It was left behind from ancient times, and it would be troublesome if he could not retrieve it. Therefore, Lin Xian decided to destroy the formation directly. Boom. He did not hold back in this attack. He directly used the dragon-shaped sword shadow and stabbed it into the ground. Instantly, the ground cracked. Cracks appeared, and the surrounding sky and earth shook. A crack also appeared on the formation. Although it was not completely destroyed, its power had been greatly reduced. Lin Xian quickly stored the second treasure chest in the black earth. Then his figure flashed, and he fled into the distance. On the other side, Xiaobai also used the treasure basin and opened a crack to obtain the first treasure chest. Then, they also turned around and fled. This scene happened too quickly, to the extent that no one could react in time. When they finally reacted, they realized that the 2 parties had already fled. Only one of the 3 treasure chests was left. Chapter 2108. Ah, damn you, great thief! Lin, leave the treasure behind. Angry roars sounded one after another. The rest of the people went crazy because they lost 2 gold treasure chests in an instant. How could they not feel heartache? Therefore, these people flew into the distance like crazy. However, Duan Qingqing, Lu Fei, and the others did not leave because there was still the 3rd treasure chest. Although this was a selection array, there were already cracks. Perhaps there was a chance to take out the 3rd treasure chest. Therefore, they flew towards the 3rd treasure chest. First Blade and the others chased halfway and came back to their senses, so they quickly turned back to snatch it. After all, compared to Lin Xian, snatching the 3rd treasure chest was more important. Leave the treasure chest behind. First Blade roared, and the 7-blade technique flashed in the sky, while Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing below shouted coldly. They also counterattacked quickly. Buzz. Cosmos Sword Array. Cosmos Sword King also came. He instantly cast a huge sword array and surrounded the front. On the other side, First Blade and another old man came and joined the battle. The battle broke out and was very intense. Short Qingqing shouted, "Cosmos Sword King, let's work together and divide the treasures equally." Okay. Cosmos Sword King nodded in agreement and counterattacked quickly. Originally, they could not cooperate with Lin Xian after he left. However, the strength that Lin Xian had displayed earlier was too powerful. If they were to plot against Duan Qingqing and the others now, they would definitely be killed. If Lin Xian attacked them, they would not be able to resist at all. Therefore, it was better to cooperate. While Duan Qingqing was fighting, Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon were also being chased. After all, the 2 of them had each snatched a treasure chest. How could the others not be jealous of such a tempting thing? The ones chasing Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon were 2 old men, mighty figures of the older generation. They roared angrily, and their bodies burned with terrifying flames. The one who charged towards Lin Xian was an old man in a red robe with red hair. At this moment, the heat waves on his body were monstrous, like a fireball, and he quickly chased over. Boom! With a wave of his palm, a fiery red light bloomed in the sky. A pressure as heavy as a mountain followed. It enveloped Lin Xian like a wave. This was the furious strike of a veteran almighty, and the power it contained was truly terrifying. The entire void started to tremble and crack open. Wong! Lin Xian coldly snorted. When he saw that there was only one person attacking him, he quickly counterattacked. He waved the demonic sword in his hand, and a sharp sword light instantly bloomed. It was like a long river that flowed endlessly. Boom! Boom! The intense collision shook the heavens and the earth. The huge palm of light was slashed apart by the sword. Not only that, the biting cold sword light quickly shot towards the red-robed old man. Courting death, the red-robed old man roared in anger. He stretched out both of his palms and shot out 2 fiery red chi waves. They immediately blocked the shocking sword light. Raging inferno palm. With a slap of his palm, the entire space was dyed red before shattering into pieces. Terrifying magma poured down from the sky and swept towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian stepped in the air and slashed down with the long sword in his hand. Sword light tore through the sky. He was like lightning. While he was flying through the sea of fire, he charged towards the red-robed old man. Boom! When he got close to the old man, he immediately used the dragon sword realm. Suddenly, a green realm enveloped the old man. Countless sword chi pierced towards him from all directions. Damn it! The old man roared in anger and fought back with all his might. Similarly, a fiery red realm appeared on his body and quickly resisted the dragon sword realm. The 2 realms collided with a thunderous sound. Kid, go to hell! At this moment, the old man suddenly took out a red fan and waved it in front of him. Boom! 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 a terrifying purple flame gushed out from the fan. Wherever it passed, nothing could survive. Everything was burned to ashes. What a terrifying flame! Even Lin Xian was extremely shocked. That was because that flame was strong enough to threaten him. At the critical moment, he used the Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps and quickly dodged. At the same time, he threw out a black dragon fist. Suddenly, the terrifying fist rushed over like a black dragon with great momentum. It intertwined with the purple flames that filled the sky. The black dragon fist carried the flames of hell. The black flames and purple flames that filled the sky collided and intertwined, erupting into a dazzling light. What? You can actually resist my innate fire. The red-robed old man was extremely shocked. This innate fire was a terrifying flame that he had obtained. Very few people below the level of a supreme being could resist it. Therefore, this was his killing move. It was very effective against his enemies. But now, his attack was actually blocked by his opponent. This made him extremely surprised. Damn it, how is this possible? The old man's face was gloomy. However, in the next moment, he opened his mouth and spat out flames into the gourd. Immediately, an even more terrifying aura was emitted from the gourd. Immediately, the surrounding space collapsed and countless cracks appeared, as if it could not withstand this power. Not good. Seeing this, Lin Xian frowned. In the next moment, he pushed his speed to the limit and disappeared from the sky. Buzz. The moment he disappeared, the place where he was standing was directly split into two. A purple arc like a purple moon pierced through the void. Damn it, he actually escaped. Seeing that this move could not kill his opponent, the red-robed old man's face became extremely gloomy. This was one of his ultimate moves. It was extremely fast and extremely sharp. It was extremely powerful in killing enemies. He did not expect that not only did his opponent have black flames, but he also had such fast speed. Whoosh. Thinking of this, his pupils suddenly shrank, and he retreated to the side, because the void beside him split open, and a figure quickly charged over. This figure was naturally Lin Xian. He dodged the shocking killing move and quickly counterattacked. The demonic sword in his hand slashed down, and a terrifying power condensed in the sky. Buzz. The sword slashed down, and the world dimmed. The red-robed old man felt pain all over his body, as if his bones were broken. He roared angrily, and his eyes were bloodshot. The Red King's domain enveloped his body, forming a battle armor that completely covered him. Clang! The terrifying sword chi slashed on his body, and the red-robed old man was sent flying by the force. At the same time, he spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood, dyeing the sky red. Fortunately, he was only injured from the impact. The armor on his body had blocked the sharp sword chi. Boom, boom, boom. The red-robed old man kept retreating, stepping on the void. Then he stabilized his body. His entire person was extremely gloomy, and there was no trace of blood on his face. He was injured. He was actually injured by a junior. If this news spread, no one would believe it. This was even more unacceptable to him. His eyes were bloodshot, and he emitted a biting cold, killing intent. Chapter 2109. Kid, you've successfully angered me. I'll let you know what it means to live a life worse than death. Boom. In the next moment, he took out a green feather. Suddenly, a terrifying wave was emitted from the feather. Between heaven and earth, green flames surged as if they were heavenly flames. The terrifying temperature was even more terrifying than the purple flames from before. What's that? Lin Xian frowned, and the black armor on his body automatically appeared. He felt a strong murderous intent. His opponent's green flames were not weaker than his hellfire. It should be a treasure, and not an ordinary one at that. Kid, You should be proud that you're able to use my ultimate move." The red-robed old man's eyes were cold. He waved the green feather in his hand. Suddenly, the entire void trembled, and a terrifying force surged out. Buzz! Lin Xian did not dare to be careless. He was surrounded by the dragon sword territory, and the great dragon sword soul in his body was operating crazily. A green dragon shadow wrapped around his demonic sword. Not only that, but there were endless black flames dancing on his body. Then, a huge flame giant was quickly formed. Boom, 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 boom. The black flames swept out like hell with a cold and violent aura. They appeared in the void and destroyed a large part of the space. The fire deity roared. With a roar, Lin Xian waved his long sword. The flame giant on his body condensed a black dragon sword in its hand and slashed down quickly. The murderous aura was like a dragon connecting heaven and earth. When the sword slashed down, heaven and earth lost its color. Seeing how terrifying the sword was, the red-robed old man's pupils shrank. In the next moment, he gritted his teeth and activated all the strength in his body to wave the green feather in his hand. Boom! Between heaven and earth, countless green flames danced and formed a green river that fell from the sky. This aura was too terrifying. Even those almighty experts who were fighting in the distance were trembling with fear in their eyes. Boom! The two collided, and the heaven and earth cracked. The terrifying flame energy completely shrouded the entire space. Retreat! At this moment, whether it was the Crimson Dragon, the other powerful experts, or Duan Qingqing, First Blade, and the others in the distance, all of them frantically retreated. When the two flames collided, the energy that erupted was enough to threaten all of them. No one dared to provoke such a flame. One could only imagine what kind of impact Lin Xian and the red-robed elder, who were engulfed in flames, had to endure at this moment. Boom, boom. Just at this moment, a figure dashed out rapidly. It was Lin Xian. At this moment, there were 4 layers of defense on his body. The first layer was the black cloak battle armor. The second layer was the fire god phantom. And the last layer was the ice guardian, adding another layer of dragon sword spirit domain. The terrifying 4 layers of defense blocked all the energy, but even so, his face was still pale, without a trace of blood. The reason for that was because the power of the 2 flames was simply too frightening. Even so, he continued to advance through the flames. Whoa! In the next moment, he arrived before the red-robed old man. What? The red-robed elder's face was filled with shock. His eyes were filled with horror. Impossible! How could you move? He was too shocked. At this moment, his body was also surrounded by green and purple flames to defend himself. However, he was unable to move at all. This was already the greatest defense he could put up. However, the fact that the other party was able to move like this was truly beyond his expectations. Humph! Lin Xian snorted coldly. He waved his long sword, and the shadow of a green dragon appeared on the sword. Then he slashed down with his sword. No! The red-robed elder roared crazily and tried to dodge. However, it was too late. The sword split him in half. Blood splattered everywhere, and the flames on his body quickly disappeared. Whoosh! Lin Xian waved his hand and put away the purple fan and green feather. Especially the green feather, which contained the power of flames, made his heart tremble. Needless to say, it should be a powerful flame treasure. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. After Lin Xian killed the red-robed elder, he immediately turned into a bolt of lightning and flew into the distance. The Crimson Dragon also took advantage of the fact that everyone was in a daze to fly away. When everyone came to their senses, they realized that Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon had already disappeared. Then Lin Xian and the Crimson Dragon pierced through the void and directly left the Big Dipper relic. They flew for hundreds of thousands of miles in a row and came to an uninhabited area. Then the two of them stopped. What on earth was it? Why did they have to go so far? The Crimson Dragon was puzzled. He had never seen Lin Xian so cautious. Could it be that there was really a treasure inside? Lin Xian did not say anything. He opened up a cave residence in the mountains, then went in and set up 3 defensive formations to cover the surroundings. Then he heaved a sigh of relief. Damn, why are you so cautious? What on earth is it? The Crimson Dragon was also very puzzled. In the next moment, he withdrew his dragon claw and took out a golden treasure box. Let me see, what on earth is it that makes you so cautious? And Hong Divine Dragon opened the golden treasure box and found an ancient scroll inside. However, when he saw the information on the scroll, he was also shocked. The sword technique was actually a heaven-class technique. Kid, you're too lucky. The Crimson Dragon roared crazily. To be honest, he did not expect that there would be a heaven-class technique inside the golden scroll. No wonder Lin Xian went through so much trouble and did not hesitate to get it. Moreover, he ran for hundreds of thousands of miles in a row. That was a heaven-class technique. Even peerless mighty figures would be jealous of it. Ordinary mighty figures probably did not have such a heaven-class technique. Chaotic Heaven Destroyer Sword. The Crimson Dragon looked and found that it was a sword technique. Then he handed it to Lin Xian. Soon he grinned. Kid, what's inside the second treasure box that you personally obtained? Don't tell me it's also a heaven-class technique? He was looking forward to it. Lin Xian actually obtained 2 treasure boxes at the same time. It seemed that the second treasure box should also be a supreme-grade treasure that should not be inferior to a heaven-class technique. Although it was not a heaven-class technique, it was still a treasure. Lin Xian smiled and opened the second box. Inside, there was a blue metal the size of a fist that was emitting a dazzling light. This is? The Crimson Dragon frowned and looked at it for a long time. Then he exclaimed, This is the Starry Cold Light Iron. Damn, this is also a supreme-grade metal. It's best to forge weapons with. The Crimson Dragon was drooling while Lin Xian smiled. Don't even think about it. I'm going to forge a sword with this. However, I can cultivate a heaven-class technique together with it. All right, the Crimson Dragon sighed. Since it was a metal that Lin Xian wanted to use to forge his sword, he naturally would not snatch it. However, it was still very satisfying to be able to learn a heaven-class technique. What should we do now? The Crimson Dragon asked. Chapter 21:10. Lin Xian put away the Starry Cold Light Iron and opened the Chaotic Heaven Destroyer Sword technique. Let's take a look at this sword technique first. The situation was dangerous now. The third prince's small team was enough to make them feel pressured. Not to mention the third prince's team and the even more terrifying first prince. He had to increase his strength again. Therefore, Lin Xian began to comprehend the Chaotic Heaven Destroyer Sword technique. On the other side, in the Big Dipper ruins, Duan Qingqing, Lu Fei, and Qianquan Sword King joined forces to fight against First Blade, Fisba, and the others. In the end, they gained the upper hand. Then, they quickly left. In the end, they obtained the third treasure chest and divided the divine gems inside equally. On the other side, the 8th prince, Taoist Long, and the others led most of their men and set off. Soon, they found a ruin. However, this relic had also caught the eye of someone, and that was the third prince's team. Moreover, it was the third prince's team. As soon as the 2 princes met, there was a strong smell of gunpowder. Especially the 8th prince, he did not want to let go of this opportunity. This was because he found that although the third prince's team was strong, their numbers were not as good. Therefore, the 8th prince decided to attack immediately. The third prince's face was gloomy. This was because he did not expect the eighth prince to gather more than a dozen experts around him. Could it be that they only had one team? Damn it! This eighth prince is actually playing such a trick. He was furious because all the prince's teams were divided into 2 or 3 teams. This way, they could have a larger area and faster search for the ruins, or snatch the Jade Amulet King token. However, he did not expect the eighth prince to only have one team. This way, although they were strong, they had fewer chances. He did not know that although the eighth prince had more people, they were also divided into 2 teams. However, the other team was Lin Xian's team. Damn it, what should we do? Are we going to leave or not? The powerful figures beside him were thinking quickly. The third prince said, "Let's go. We can't let them surround us. The ruins are a small matter. We can't lose the Jade Amulet King token, and we can't exhaust our main force." Now was not the time for the final battle. The third prince said in a deep voice. Sure enough, the surrounding people also nodded in agreement. They still needed to continue to increase their strength. If they were to fight with the eighth prince now, it would be very disadvantageous. Moreover, the combat power of the eighth prince's side was clearly superior to theirs. Thus, they decisively retreated. This third prince was quite decisive. He didn't even want half of the ruins that had been excavated. He was indeed a ruthless person. So what? He couldn't let them go. Chase, the eighth prince's side, was discussing. As for the eighth prince, he waved his hand and led a large group of almighties to chase after them. The people of the Grand Imperial Hall naturally saw this scene and immediately cried out in alarm. They hadn't expected that the 2 most powerful princes, other than the first prince, would meet so soon. Moreover, there was such a dramatic chase. This was something that had never happened before, because the eighth prince and the third prince were on par with each other in terms of strength. The number of experts in their hands was also about the same. It could be said that they were evenly matched. Under normal circumstances, such an encounter would definitely be an earth-shattering battle. They had no idea who would win and who would lose in the end. But now, the eighth prince had gathered all of his forces, while the third prince only had half of the forces in his hands. With such a comparison, the third prince had fallen into a disadvantageous position. Only the situation of being chased had occurred. One had to admit that the eighth prince's strategy was really surprising. Most likely, other than the first prince, no one else would be able to contend against this lineup. Everyone was discussing. As for the elders and princes who supported the third prince, their faces were solemn. On the other hand, the eighth prince's side was filled with joy. The empress also frowned slightly. She had to admit that the eighth prince was a great threat to the crown prince's position. But now she couldn't help much. However, she wasn't too worried because those that she had chosen for the first prince were all elite experts. Among them was the Golden Lion King, an expert from the War tribe. Thinking about it, no one would be able to contend against them. Thinking of this, the empress also let out a sigh of relief. In the second stage, the third prince was running away. They didn't dare to fight against the eighth prince. This scene was seen by the nearby teams, and they were all stunned. Damn, what did I just see? The third prince is running for his life. Could it be that the first prince is here? From what they knew, only the first prince could put the third prince in such a difficult situation. But soon, they were stunned because they realized that the person who was chasing after the third prince was not the first prince, but the eighth prince. What made them even more shocked was that the eighth prince's lineup was too strong. Heavens, could it be that the eighth prince didn't have a team? Damn, the eighth prince is too cunning. Everyone exclaimed and retreated because they were all in a team of 5 or 4 people. They couldn't contend against the eighth prince's team of more than 10 people. But fortunately, the eighth prince didn't care about the people around him. He was chasing after the third prince with all his strength because the third prince was his main enemy to seize the crown prince's position. Only by killing the third prince could he contend against the first prince. Therefore, he had steeled his heart to chase after the third prince. Eighth prince, I will remember today's enmity. One day, I will pay you back. The third prince was running wildly in front, turning into a stream of light that kept flickering. He let out a furious roar because he was too aggrieved. As a top prince, he was not afraid of anyone except the first prince. He didn't expect that he would be chased by the eighth prince in front of so many powerful princes. How was he going to survive in the future? Therefore, the third prince gritted his teeth in anger. Third brother, do you still want to pay me back? But unfortunately, you won't have the chance. Today, you will be eliminated. The eighth prince also said loudly. He was very excited because this was definitely a great opportunity. Everyone, chase after him with all your strength. You must not let him go, the eighth prince ordered. On the other hand, the third prince's face was gloomy. Among them, the two old men beside him said, Third prince, what should we do? How about this? We will lead our men to fight for a while, and you and the other experts will leave. Someone said. However, the third prince shook his head. No, the opponent was too strong now. No matter who he sent, they couldn't stop him. Moreover, they would lose their lives for nothing. The third prince gritted his teeth. He would never allow his elites to be lost. Because of this, his strength would be weaker, and he wouldn't be able to fight against the eighth prince, not to mention the first prince. At this time, a middle-aged man said, I have an idea, but it's very risky. Chapter 21:11. What is it? Tell me quickly. The third prince quickly asked. The middle-aged man took out a map and flew quickly. He said, Third prince, there is a big rift valley nearby. It is very dangerous, and it is said to be a ruin. However, it is very dangerous, and no one dares to go there normally. However, if we go down there, we might be able to get rid of the eighth prince. Are you talking about the dark canyon? At this time, an old man said in a deep voice. The middle-aged man nodded. Yes, it is the dark canyon. The dark canyon is too dangerous. Almost no one has entered it during the Crown Prince battle. Because there was once a prince who was relatively strong and had the potential to become the Crown Prince who went in, he suffered heavy losses and lost more than half of his men. Then, that prince had no chance to become the Crown Prince. One could imagine how terrifying the Dark Canyon was. However, if we don't do this, we will die, because we can't get rid of the eighth prince. Some people refuted. In the end, everyone looked at the third prince and waited for his decision. The third prince also felt the pressure. Indeed, he had heard of the dangers of the Dark Canyon. It could be said to be a forbidden place. However, if he did not go in, he would definitely be chased by the eighth prince. Although he was a prince and had a life-saving method, he would not be killed. However, this did not mean that he would not be eliminated. As long as his life was threatened, he would be teleported out and would have no chance to compete for the Crown Prince battle. This was no different from killing him. Furthermore, he knew that his current performance was being watched by the emperor and countless elders of the royal family. After running for so long, it was still a very shameful thing. If he was defeated by the eighth prince in the end, he would lose face. He probably would not be able to raise his head in the future. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and decided to enter the Dark Canyon. At least, he would get rid of the eighth prince and quickly come out. Okay, let's go to the Dark Canyon. The third prince gritted his teeth and said. Then, with a flash of his body, he flew in another direction. That direction was the direction of the Dark Canyon. Behind him, the eighth prince and others frowned when they saw this. Taoist Long said, Oh no, they are going to the Dark Canyon. It seems that they are really desperate. The dark canyon? You mean that place that is similar to a forbidden place? The others also cried out in alarm. Obviously, they had all heard of the dangers of the dark canyon. After the eighth prince heard this, his face also became gloomy. He sped up and stopped him. He absolutely could not let him enter the dark canyon. He would not enter a dangerous place. After all, he was going to fight for the crown prince's position. Therefore, in the next moment, they couldn't help but speed up. However, the third prince's group was determined to enter. Thus, the third prince's group began to unleash their secret techniques, one after another. No matter the cost, they had to act quickly. In the end, the eighth prince and the others were still a step slower. When they arrived, they found that the third prince and the others had already entered the dark canyon. The eighth prince stopped in front of the dark canyon and was very angry. He smashed the surrounding mountain peaks with his palm. It was obvious that he was in a bad mood because this was a perfect opportunity to kill the third prince. As long as he had the first prince's hand, his only opponent would be the first prince. But who would have thought that the other party would actually run into the dark canyon? Taoist long said from the side, there was no need for the eighth prince to be angry. After all, the dark ravine was known as the death ravine. There was a 90% chance of death in there. Maybe we don't even need to do anything, and they won't be able to come out. Yes, such a ravine is not simple. The previous rumors were not false. The others also said the same thing. The eighth prince said in a deep voice, if I don't kill the third prince personally, I will not be at ease. To be honest, he was not confident. Because the third prince was not inferior to him in any aspect, he would only be at ease if he saw the third prince being teleported out with his own eyes. Let's wait here first. I am afraid that they have not gone far. The eighth prince did not give up. He believed that the third prince was only hiding in the dark canyon and had not really entered it. Therefore, he planned to wait outside for the rabbit to appear. Soon, the eighth prince and the others stopped outside the dark canyon. Previously, they had explored a few ruins and obtained many heavenly treasures. This time, they could use this opportunity to cultivate and refine the treasures or heavenly treasures that they had obtained. Grand Imperial Palace. When the emperor, the empress, and the elders of the imperial family saw the third prince enter the dark canyon, they exclaimed in surprise. The elders of the eighth prince's side smiled. On the other hand, the third prince's side looked gloomy and dignified. It's over. The third prince is too bold. He even dares to enter the dark canyon. Doesn't he know that it is a forbidden place? This time, the third prince is really going to die. He will not be able to compete for the position of crown prince. Many people shook their heads and sneered. However, the third prince's people also looked gloomy. To be honest, although they were shocked by the third prince's decision, they had no choice but to do the same if they were in his shoes. This was because this was the only way to get rid of the eighth prince's pursuit. Therefore, although they knew that the dark canyon was very dangerous, there was nothing they could do. They could only pray that the third prince was lucky. Not to mention the elders. Even the emperor was frowning. However, even though he was frowning, he was not worried. This was because the third prince had a teleportation array on him. At the moment when his life was in danger, he would break the void and be teleported back. However, if he did that, he would lose the qualification to compete. Inside the dark canyon, after the third prince and the others entered, they stopped. This was because they realized that the eighth prince did not enter the dark canyon. This made them feel relieved. However, they soon realized that the eighth prince did not leave. Instead, he sat down cross-legged outside the dark canyon. This wasn't good news for them. This was because the exit was blocked and they could not get out at all. They could only stay in the dark canyon. Although they were only at the edge of the canyon, they could feel a cold aura invading their bodies. Damn it, the eighth prince is too despicable. How dare he block our way out? When the third prince's mighty ones saw this, they gritted their teeth. The third prince's face was gloomy. Outside, most of the eighth prince's people were cultivating. Only a few of them were left to patrol. As long as the third prince came out or made a move, they would immediately wake the others up. It seemed that the eighth prince was determined to kill the third prince this time. What should they do? The third prince felt very uncomfortable. Chapter 21:12. The third prince gritted his teeth. No, it's not a good idea to continue like this. The eighth prince also noticed the situation. They found that the third prince was at the edge and did not go deeper. In this way, it would not be a fatal blow to the third prince. Therefore, the eighth prince gritted his teeth and woke up all the powerful experts and quickly rushed in. They also wanted to enter the dark canyon. Of course, their purpose was to let the third prince go deeper into the dark canyon. In this way, it would be a more fatal blow to the third prince. Sure enough, the third prince gritted his teeth when he saw this scene. He had no choice but to retreat again. Therefore, when they went deeper into the canyon, a black gust of wind blew around them. It included the third prince's team. When the eighth prince saw this scene, he quickly retreated with his team. They did not dare to go deeper into the canyon. Moreover, it seemed that the third prince had encountered some danger. Therefore, they only needed to wait patiently outside, because during this period of time, a lot of black gust of wind blew into their bodies and eroded their bodies. Now, they had to clear out the black gust of wind. Otherwise, it would affect their bodies. It would affect their combat strength. One day later, the eighth prince and others opened their eyes. The black gust of wind in their bodies had been removed. However, it still made them feel a lingering fear. At this time, the eighth prince frowned again. Although the third prince was surrounded by the black gust of wind, they did not know the final result. How about this? I'll bring a few people in to check it out. Daoist Long said in a deep voice. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Go in? What a joke. It's such a dangerous place. Isn't it suicide to go in? Therefore, many people refused, and the eighth prince sighed. It would be great if Brother Lin was here. The Brother Lin he mentioned was naturally Lin Xian. Lin Xian was a daring man. He should not be afraid of such a place. Unfortunately, Lin Xian was not here. The eighth prince did not give up. He said, "We have several chances to contact each other. It seems that we have to use it now." Speaking of this, the eighth prince began to send messages to Lin Xian, Duan Qingqing, and Lu Fei. 2 days later, Lu Fei and Duan Qingqing arrived near the dark canyon. They met up with the eighth prince. "You're here." When the eighth prince saw the two of them, he immediately laughed. Then he asked, "Where's Brother Lin? Is he not with you? Or are you in some kind of danger?" Soon, Duan Qingqing roughly explained what had happened in the Big Dipper ruins. When everyone heard that Lin Xian had snatched a golden treasure chest and was being chased by the third prince's men, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Therefore, they had no idea where Lin Xian was. However, the eighth prince said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, he should be fine." Let's wait for a while. Indeed, the eighth prince believed in Lin Xian's strength. When Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei learned that the eighth prince had forced the third prince into the dark canyon, they were extremely shocked. Then, they all became excited. Previously, they had suffered a strong blow from the third prince's subordinates. Now that they saw the third prince suffer a loss, they were naturally happy. Thus, the two of them sat down cross-legged and waited quietly. On the other side, there was a mountain range. Inside the cave, Lin Xian opened his eyes. He had received the message from the eighth prince, but he was not in a hurry to leave. An antique scroll floated in front of him. It was the Chaotic Heaven Destroyer Sword Technique. He had finished reading the Chaotic Heaven Destroyer Sword Technique. It was roughly divided into 3 levels. There were 3 levels. Moreover, this sword technique increased one's combat power by condensing the chaotic sword chi. There were a total of 24 moves in the sword technique. Among them, there were 4 killer moves. Lin Xian had a rough understanding of the 24 moves of the sword technique. Now, he could barely perform the first 3 moves. However, he could not perform the 4 killer moves for the time being. After all, this was a heaven-class skill. Although it was only a beginner heaven-class skill, it was not something that an earth-class skill could compare to. The difficulty was beyond anyone's imagination. It was already extremely difficult for him to master the first 3 moves in such a short period of time. This was also due to his heaven-defying talent in swordsmanship. Of course, there were 3 levels. He had not even reached the first level of minor accomplishment. It was only equivalent to mastering it. However, just by mastering it, he could feel that his combat power had increased by a lot. If he could fully perform the Chaotic Heaven Destroyer Sword Technique, the power would be heaven-defying. Now that he understood the content, the next step was to practice. This required actual combat. Therefore, at the thought of this, Lin Xian took a deep breath and woke up the dark god dragon. Then, the dark red dragon entered the black earth. His figure flashed as he left the cave, preparing to meet up with the 8th prince. Along the way, he took out a spirit boat and flew while he continued to comprehend the Chaotic Heaven Destroyer Sword Technique. 3 days later, Lin Xian opened his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he kept the spirit boat. Then his figure descended. Not long after, he saw a huge canyon below him. It was as if the ground was split into 2. A cold and crazy aura spread out from the canyon. Even though he was far away, Lin Xian could feel his heart palpitating. Why was the 8th prince in such a dangerous place? Lin Xian frowned because he sensed that the 8th prince was nearby. However, the aura here was too dangerous. Could it be that the 8th prince was in danger? Thinking of this, Lin Xian could not help but increase his speed. Buzz. Soon, he landed on the ground. Not long after, he found the 8th prince and the others. So, he flew toward them. Below, the 8th prince and the others opened their eyes. Their gazes were like lightning, piercing through the void. "Who is it?" one of the Almighties shouted coldly. His voice was like thunder, spreading in all directions. Lin Xian revealed himself and said in a clear voice, "It's me. It's you." The Almighties recognized him. When the others heard him, they also opened their eyes and looked into the distance. When they found out that it was Lin Xian, they were shocked. "Lin Xian, you're fine." "That's great." Duan Qingqing and Lu Fei heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Lin Xian. The 8th prince said, "Brother Lin, I was worried when I heard that you were chased by the 3rd prince's men. Now that I see that you're fine, that's great. Thank you for your concern. 8th prince and everyone. I'm fine," Lin Xian said. Then he looked at the huge canyon in the distance. "But what are you guys doing here? Are you trying to enter the canyon?" It was like this. The 8th prince explained the matter. "What? The 3rd prince was forced to enter the canyon?" Lin Xian was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled. He did not expect that the 3rd prince, who was so powerful, would be so aggrieved. Thinking about it, his heart must be bursting with anger. You're tuning into the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.